Thank you all for coming, and we have a rather hectic, heavy agenda tonight, so we'll move right into it. First item is for public input on non-agenda items. Barbara? Yes, and please speak into the microphone, and normal procedure, try to stay within 3 minutes if you can. Please, we appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Barb Oland. I live in Hardin Avenue in Camden. We've been taxpayers for about 37 years. And I just wanted to thank the board for tackling the issue about the McGonagall River and looking forward into what the health of the community would be like. And a few of us have been meeting informally, and we'd like to present a ballot measure that would read something like this. As part of the restoration of the McGonagall River, do you favor the Select Board accepting grant funds on behalf of the town to reduce flooding and facilitate fish passage at the outlet of the river, including the removal of the Montgomery Dam? So we're hoping that you would consider that.
Well, absolutely. Just, the procedure is pretty straightforward. The charter requires us to listen to or address any citizen's petition. And we, once you please send in his email when you're ready to come to the board with the petition language, and we can get you on an agenda so we can discuss it in more detail.
Will do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. Nina. Ms. Holland.
Hi, I'm a resident of Camden for over 15 years. My name is Nina Holland. I'm addressing an issue about Tannery Park. The town is now using the property of Tannery Park as a staging station for heavy equipment for bridges and streets and sidewalk projects, and the storage of 3 large culverts, plus some other stuff. The horrendous banging noises, like gunshots, big gunshots, through spring and summer often started at 7 o'clock a.m. Some projects had blowing dusts that reminded me of the Dust Bowl. The unsightliness shows disrespect to the neighborhood. I personally miss watching preschoolers learning to ride their trikes and bikes and little skateboards. I beg your consideration of other places to stage equipment and fill. My concern is that the present policy will continue at the will of town officials. I recognize that at the present use, the tannery is convenient, probably legal, but unethical because it ignores the will of town residents. What would the town do if any of the 4 proposals had ever come to a vote? For instance, Sagamore Farm is 6 miles from town, may cost more on contractor bids, but is not in the middle of a neighborhood. In 2014, the town made the close vote that the property be used 51% for commercial, 49% for a park. Because of the close vote, in 2015, the town paid a facilitator $20,000 plus some money for a landscape person to meet with 14 volunteers to come up with a plan. After many meetings, volunteers, this is, just like the select board is volunteers, they came up with a plan with an accompanying map that showed 1/4 to 1/3 of the space for possible building. The farmers market with adequate parking space and a park. In 2017, officials stated that the plan was just a concept, The plot could be used for commercial purposes of any size. The support letters, however, attached to the EPA Groundfield Cleanup Grant, which was granted, does not reflect this bias. In the town's economic development meeting on April of 2019, an RFD to purchase or lease the land proposal was discussed. 30 residents showed up. And they voiced their objections. Nevertheless, the town issued the RFD to two commercial enterprises, plus Habitat for Humanity and Friends of Tannery Park issued proposals. As far as I know, none of these are on the November 2021 ballot. What happened? In reference to priorities, the Camden Herald on August 5th, 2021 reported the select board members, Falciani, Ratner, and Romana, agree the tannery property has to be addressed. My request is that everyone do so. I appreciate it. You have many things on your calendar and that you're volunteers, but I do wish that you would pay attention to this problem and let it be known to the public what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. And the tannery is on our radar, so thank you for coming. Good to see you
Well,
again.
we don't know that in the general public.
I know that. I understood.
Okay.
Any other, Ray?
Thank you.
My name is Ray Williamson. I'm a Camden resident. At the last select board meeting, a decision was made not to renew the license agreement for one of our vessels. During the deliberations, several questions were asked by board members. Some of the responses were incomplete, misleading, or simply not accurate. Unfortunately, I was not present at the meeting to provide meaningful feedback. I would like to take this opportunity to clarify to the board, especially the new members, our business relationship with the town and make a request. In 2017, we applied for one of two available day sale permits for Sally, the vessel in question. The Sally is a classic 27-foot Hodgson Brothers open lobster boat built in 1941. This style is typical of early motorized lobster boats. She had an open layout with no cabin protruding above the deck. We built in comfortable seating and proposed to offer 1 hour, 6-passenger harbor tours along the shore and across the islands on calm days. Sally and her accompanying schedule for use of the day sailor float were given the unanimous approval of the Harbor Committee, the Camden Day Sailor Association, and the Harbor Master before being approved by the Camden Select Board. To give a little perspective, 40 years ago, our family moved to Camden for one reason, because it was the Windjammer capital of the world. We immediately fell in love with every aspect of this community and decided to make Camden our permanent home. In 1986, my wife Ann and I were fortunate enough to purchase Camden's original Windjammer fleet, the company I had been working for since our arrival 4 years earlier. The vessels were in need of restoration. We struggled to keep them afloat as we moved ahead with major repairs each winter. Ultimately, we had to take Maddie, that's the Grace Bailey for those of you who weren't here back then, out of service for a year. It was clear that we had taken on far more than anticipated, but this did not deter us from our goals. During this vulnerable time, competitors and naysayers were aggressively attempting to take our privilege to operate in Camden. They petitioned the Select Board not to renew our lease. In this very room, arguments for their demands included comments like, "Are we trying to compete with Wiscasset to see who can have the most derelict schooners in our harbor? And don't let his false promises persuade you to waste such a valuable asset. Ray Williamson is not the person who's going to save the Maddie." Well, thanks to the wisdom of that select board, a compromise was achieved in which we would surrender the Maddie's berth, but were guaranteed to have it back the following season after the successful restoration of the vessel. Fortunately for us and for the town, we did restore the vessels and were able to continue operating our family business in Camden for the past 36 years. We have been quietly trying to find someone local who would continue operating the original fleet here in Camden. We have recently begun to actively advertise the sale of our restored national landmark vessels. They have been an iconic presence in Camden Harbor for over 3/4 of a century. It is our sincere hope that a buyer can be found who will keep them here in Camden. Part of our motivation for pursuing the Sally business was to maintain a connection with the sea and Camden Harbor when this is accomplished. I am respectfully asking that a review of the decision to cancel Sally's privilege be put on the next agenda in order that I may have an opportunity for public comment.
Thank you, Ray. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gross.
Good evening. My name is Ken Gross, and this is Tom Rothwell. Let the record show that we formally petitioned the Select Board with a request for a warrant article on behalf of ourselves and the Save the Dam Falls Committee of Camden. We are registered voters and citizens of Camden. Excuse me. We want to maintain the Montgomery Dam near Harbor Park and to prevent the destruction of the Montgomery Dam and Falls. We seek the Camden Select Board to place the following warrant article in the next warrant issued or call a special town meeting for its consideration. The wording of the petition is, shall the town of Camden protect, preserve, maintain, and repair the existing Montgomery Dam near Harbor Park in Camden? The purpose of this warrant article is to prevent the destruction or removal of the Montgomery Dam and to preserve the Montgomery Dam, Falls, and Mill Pond. Thank you. I think Tom has a statement.
Sure. Go ahead, Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Rothwell. I'm a resident of Camden. The waterfall at the head of Camden Harbor is an icon of the town. It represents the best that Camden has to offer in terms of beauty, economic vitality, and historical legacy. Taking down Montgomery Dam is a momentous decision. This decision should have received a great deal of discussion. The town should have offered design reviews and evaluations of citizens' attitudes about the value of the waterfall, Harbor Park, fish passage, and flood mitigation. To date, these discussions have not happened. Town officials have carefully and consistently avoided any opportunity for townspeople to voice our opinions and to have any effect on the proposed plan. The townspeople of Camden deserve to be heard. That is the purpose of this petition to the Select Board. It is a plea to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
That's a good segue into just a brief statement, basically, that the town, we will be producing I call it a sequence of events, I call it that, as being what we're doing between now and whenever. It's constantly moving, and in those sequence of events, we'll be discussing things like the process that we have to go through to, well, first of all, hear your petitions. Clearly, we have to do that. But in addition, related to the dam and the river restoration, there are numerous activities going on all fronts. When we get to a point where information is available, we'll be looking at evaluating, and that requires us to have certain public hearings and to bring in the public for comment on any of the data that we have on the table at that time. We don't, it's, I would say timeline too, but the problem, timeline is moving rapidly on us, and I think, Audrey, you have an update on that we'll be discussing later with regard to the grant on the design, where that's been also delayed. So the process is going to be quite long, but we're going to try to provide some more information to the residents and taxpayers and voters to understand the view from 15,000 feet of where we have to go and how we're to get there. And hopefully that'll answer some questions, Tom, I think you have and others. It may not answer all of them, but we want to open up that dialogue.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Any other, I'm going to limit the dam issues to only a couple more because I don't want to turn this into a discussion, but I don't want to close the door either. Does somebody else want to speak to before I get to you, please? Anybody else have any other issue other than the Sally or the dam removal or not, or that project? No. Okay. So you had your hand up, please. And again, if you could keep it to 3 minutes, I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Robin Harlow, long-term resident of Camden, and I wanted to speak just a little bit to the select board about the dam issue. I wanted to express my appreciation of the efforts of that the select board is making in spending tax dollars in an intelligent, efficient, and forward-thinking way. The river restoration project is a multifaceted issue, which requires a full examination of the issues based on fact, science, and engineering expertise. It is not merely an issue of the Montgomery Dam and the handful of business owners and a few others who feel they should have ultimate ownership in a town decision. Thank you for not getting sidetracked by bullying, misinformation, banner displays that are against town ordinance, and the questionable use of the Olmsted 200 logo in protest. I feel the need to remind people that nobody is proposing to destroy Harbor Park. Water from the dam and increasing sea levels are doing that. I am surprised this environmental and safety issue has been so slow to come to the forefront. But I would encourage you to continue your efforts to find a sustainable solution that would benefit all of the citizens of Camden and the greater Maguntacook watershed. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you very much. Others? Stephanie?
I'm Stephanie Smith. I live on Washington Street across from the Maguntacook River. And I've come to you before speaking about the river and the dam project and the restoration, so I feel I've been tracking it for quite a while. And I just want to lend my support to, if we have to go to a ballot measure, for the town to seek grants so that we can restore the river. And the Maguntacook Dam may be the beginning part of that whole long process. I'm mindful about history. I live in a historic house, and I would love the select board to consider the possibility of a outdoor historic dam river display about our history of mills and what the whole river has done. I noticed in the comprehensive plan that was called out as an historic value, and I think there's a way we can honor that while we also honor the river and recognize we have to honor taxpayer money. I don't really want to have to continue to pay for someone to maintain a dam that is not serving any purpose. And I am concerned. I serve on the Natural Resource Council of Maine, and I'm concerned about climate change and sea level rise and flooding. And I think we have an honor to the citizens to make sure we reduce flooding risk, which the dam makes difficult. So I appreciate, and I will do all I can to help get out information that's accurate and science-based. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who wants to speak to a non-agenda item? Thank you very much for coming. And as I said a few minutes ago, I'm hoping that we can put out some material that will at least give a better vision, a more accurate vision of the path forward, part of which we'll be discussing as an agenda item tonight later on this in this agenda, which is item 5B.
We also have a lot of, information that's available.
Yeah,
And so,
we do.
I have personally spent 12 hours listening to, just on Zoom alone, listening to any input that anybody wanted to give. We've been listening to input for the past 4 years. The first public hearing about this issue was back in 2017, 2018. So there is a lot of information available. It is technical and takes a little while to wade
Correct.
through, but we are accepting input on an ongoing basis like we are on all things. You can always email the select board. People stop me and talk about this issue every single day. So I
Understood.
think we are listening. We're not preparing to get to a place where we can listen. We are listening and have been.
All right, we're going to move on with our agenda to item 2 now, and again, thank you all for coming. It's good to see your faces. Which would be our, what is it? Approval of the board minutes from October 5, 2021. Any comments from anybody, or one that I can't vote on for the first time ever?
My computer is reworking. There was one spelling correction, but I think it wasn't in the minutes, so I'm fine with the minutes. I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes from October 5th, 2021.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I just want to point out that I'm thanking the note taker because I think it's a she, it's a he, I apologize.
Very
I
smooth.
want to thank the note taker because of the addition to the links that we've requested so that the public reading the notes and the minutes can have access to some of the documents we're referring to. So thank you so much for actually doing it so fast.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? Not hearing any. I'll go for Matt, I'll need a verbal from you when I get to you because you're on Zoom. Roll call vote. I cannot vote because I wasn't here. I have to abstain. So all those in favor of accepting the minutes? 3. Matt? Verbal, Matt?
Matt Siegel, in favor of accepting the minutes.
Thank you. That's 4 and 1 abstention. Thank you very much. On to item 3, which is a public hearing on a liquor license for the application of Peter Otts at 16 Bayview for renewal of a Class 1 restaurant liquor license. The process for a public hearing is basically that the select board would like to solicit comments from any individual here or not to address the matter at hand to help the select board in its deliberation. I will call upon the public to make any statement for, against, or just speak to the item during the public hearing portion. Once I've heard from everybody in the public that wants to speak, I will close the public portion and revert to select board decision. There will be no more input from the public unless a select board member has a question of somebody who has spoken previously. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak to this license for Peter Otts? Not seeing any hands, I will close the public session section of the public hearing and revert now to the select board. Board comments or motion?
I'd like to make I'll make a motion that we approve the application of Peter Otts at 16 Bayview Street for renewal Class 1 restaurant liquor license.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion from the select board? Not hearing anybody, I'll go for a vote. All those in favor? 4, and Matt?
Matt is for it.
Yeah, verbal?
In favor, thank you.
No, thank you. 5-0. Thank you very much. I'd now like to have a motion to leave the select board meeting and adjourn as wastewater commissioners.
Reconvene.
Adjourn.
Reconvene.
I'll live through it. I'll live through it. To convene as wastewater commissioners.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn as select board and convene as wastewater commissioners.
I second.
All those in favor? 4, Matt?
In favor of adjourning and
Yes.
convening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are now wastewater commissioners, and the first item we have is the approval of repairs to the Bayview pump station and approval to expend from the pump station reserve. Audra, do you want to lead us to this one?
Dave Bolstridge is
Where is he?
with us.
Oh, I thought you were lost in space. Welcome, Dave.
Okay, we have 3 pumps at the Bayview Pump Station.
Introduce yourself because you're
Oh,
hiding.
yes, David Bolstridge, Superintendent of the Wastewater Treatment Plant.
And if you feel comfortable removing your mask, I think it's easier when we speak on mics without
Okay,
masks. Thank
I can
you.
breathe better, too. Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, we have 3 pumps at the Bayview Pump Station, and one of them is in need of repair, so we want to go ahead and ship that out, do a complete overhaul on the pump. And normally I would say it's $10,000 or $12,000 repair, but these days I think that we probably should look at about approving $15,000 to do that, just to play it safe.
Wasn't that pump station recently renovated or repaired?
No, that was C Street.
That was C Street.
C Street, Mount Batty.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, thank you.
And Bayview was upgraded 13 years ago.
Right. This, how many pumps?
3 pumps, 105 horsepower per pump.
Ooh.
Yeah, big pumps.
Okay, Audra, anything you want to add? But that this, whatever amount, 15,000, I'm hearing requested, will be taken from the reserve.
Pump station reserve.
Budget.
Yep.
Which is a very big reserve.
Yes, we have plenty of funds in the pump station reserve to cover the cost of this
Board
project.
discussion, Allison?
Yeah, so is this, the information we have in the packet, is that limited to this email here? Or is there anything else? Did I miss something? I mean, I guess I'm just having a little bit of trouble like, how do we know that it's failed? Is this the reason that we're having overflows? When I hear the Bayview Street pump station, that like triggers all these things in my mind of known issues and overflows and thinking, okay, before we put $10,000 into one aspect of it, should we really be thinking about reworking it entirely? I'm trying to understand sort of the scope of what's being proposed.
Yeah, that's a good question. As it turns out, 13 years ago when they put those new pumps in, they actually spec'd them because that is the capacity of the force main.
Okay.
So those pumps will pump as much as they can through the force main. There's no more capacity in that pipe. We'd have to change out the pipe to get more capacity.
Okay.
This particular pump also tends to get all the sand that comes into the pump station. And of course, it's eroded the impeller. And so it's not up to what a new pump would be as far as pumping. So if we go ahead and do this repair, then it'll restore some of the pumping ability at the pump station.
So this is a repair of the impellers and the casing?
It's a complete overhaul.
So, but it's not a new pump?
No. When these pumps were purchased 13 years ago, they were about $35,000 a piece.
I was going to say it's kind of low price
Yeah.
for replacement.
Right, yeah.
All right.
Today, I wouldn't dare say how much they would be.
Or if you can get them.
Right, exactly. That's going to be a problem, that's for sure.
Why does so much sand come in? Is that a part of our I&I issue, or is that just part of the normal makeup that you would expect in the wastewater?
Yeah, that's pretty typical. The sewer covers, they're not completely, they don't
Sealed or?
sealed around it, yeah. Yeah, on the edge there, some sand will get in there from
Yep.
plowing and stuff in the winter.
Yep.
When we open those to work on the collection system, some of that sand falls in there. And, you take hundreds of
Fines.
manhole covers and it adds up.
In any place that we have infiltration, probably, if we have broken sewer pipes under the ground, that probably brings in sand too.
That could very well do that as well, yeah. And this pump is just where its location is off the wet well, it's getting most of the sand. So the other two aren't being eroded like this one is.
Where do we stand in determining the scope of work for the study, the I&I study that we're going to do to try to address the overall issue?
We've got a good plan right now. We're going to talk about that, I think, in the next select board meeting
Oh,
in
perfect.
November.
Okay,
Great.
thanks.
That's great, Dave. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm hearing the request for a motion for $15,000 to be taken out of the wastewater budget reserve.
Doing the work.
Who's doing the work?
Is this just to put it out to bid, or is there?
No, we're going to send that to the Flight Service Center
Okay.
in Connecticut.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
we want the manufacturer to do the
Good
repairs.
question. Do I hear a motion to, Mark?
I'll make a motion. We approve the repairs to the Bayview Pump Station and an approval to expend from the pump station reserve.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Not hearing any, I'll go for a vote. All those in favor? And Mr. Siegel?
In favor, thank you. Good luck with the repair.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Dave. Thanks for coming. We have another item as wastewater commissioners, which is the certificate of commitment for $726,026.81.
For all the bills that already went out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you talk about.
I just have to say it every time.
Yeah, I know you do, and I agree with you. Do I have a motion to accept this certificate of commitment?
Let me get to it again.
Okay, Mark.
I will,
This period is from, well, Mark's looking from January 10th to July 12th of 2021.
I'll make a motion, we approve quarterly billings and certificate of commitment of sewer bills from January 10th to 2021 to July 12th, 2021, in the amount of $726, $1,026.81.
I second.
The double 26 confused me.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Not hearing, and I go for a vote. All those in favor? And Mr. Siegel?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you very much, 5-0. Thank you. And now we need a motion to adjourn as wastewater commissioners and convene as select board again.
I move that we adjourn as wastewater commissioners and reconvene as select board.
I second.
All those in favor? Matt?
Yes, sir.
Good response. On to our action items for the night, of which we have 7. The first one is an approval of a Vittler license for Pier Otts at 16 Bayview Landing.
I'll make a motion that we approve the victualler license, I cannot pronounce that word properly, for Peter Otts at 16 Bayview Landing.
It's because it's a French word.
I hope not.
No, it is. I second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? All's in favor? Or Matt?
In favor, thank you.
Okay, 5-0. Thank you. The second is the approval of a lodging license for Drift Oceanside Inn at 80 Boulogne Road.
I'll make a motion, we approve the lodging license for Drift Oceanside Inn at 80 Boulogne Road.
I second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? All's in favor? Matt?
In favor.
Thank you, 5-0. Third, approval of a new Vittler license for Elevate Energy at 25 Mechanic Street.
Should we be asking if any of these people are here that want to speak?
Yeah, I will. Why don't we, which one?
The one you're on right now.
Then come on up. Thank you, Allison.
I also got some paperwork for you guys.
I love the name.
Oh, thank you, yeah.
Yeah, we have this in our packet, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Inspection report.
Okay, perfect.
No,
Yeah.
that's fine, go ahead.
My name is Hunter, Hunter Grindle, and Rich and I are opening a new business in town called Elevate Energy. And basically what we do is we're going to create sandwiches, kind of homemade salads, snacks like, protein balls, yogurt parfaits, things like that, but some to-go items that people can have, as well as protein shakes, teas, things like that. So we would just like to be able to serve food.
When do you plan on just giving people more information about your opening and plans, just so that you have the floor?
Yeah, of course. So we've been preparing the space now for about a month, and we're planning on opening this Friday, pending the approval. So, but yeah, it's looking really good in there. We've got some nice gift shop type items too, that are really many. So it's going to be kind of a combo.
Right.
But yeah.
In 25 Mechanic Street, which address is, I should know it, but.
Next to the Bagel Cafe.
Yeah, we're neighbors to the Bagel Cafe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was. Go ahead, Allison, go ahead.
So I just have to ask, because it's this hot topic in town that people like to ask questions about. It's not a personal interest of mine so much, but I know people are curious. So is this part of the whole Herbalife phenomenon, or is this one of those?
Yeah, so it's a common question we get, and it is not. So one of the products that we serve, which is our our energy teas. Herbalife does have a similar product like that, but we don't function or work with them at all. We function like a normal restaurant would, where we buy our product wholesale and create our own products. It's not a part of like any multi-level marketing company or anything like that.
It's not a franchise. It's not. Do you have, how many locations do you have?
So we just opened one 9 months ago. So we actually opened hybrid. We've had hybrid fitness now in Warren for 7 years. And so we opened the first Elevate to kind of support our gym members in everything they do about 9 months ago, or at the beginning of the year. And so we came up with the opportunity for this space, and we thought, hey, it's going well for us in Warren, so why don't we do it here? And we have the capacity to do it. So.
Great.
Well, welcome to Camden.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we're very excited.
I'm questioning, you've been doing this for a while now. What are your most popular items?
Yeah. Oh. So. Yeah. So I would.
So interesting.
Cool. So one of my favorites, if you like blue raspberry, is the Atomic Berry energy, and we do it sparkling. So that is fantastic. As far as our food goes, which again we need to make a purchase of our food cooler, so we probably won't open with our food right away, but we will very soon, as our Italians. Rich is the master chef here, but they're different than most Italians.
Great.
Yeah, and so people love those. I mean, we can't really keep those stocked.
Your own designs and own creations and.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, we've been inspired by some things we see online, but others we've created on our own. We do a lot of specials based around the holidays and things like that. Another great part of, and what we're excited about, is being kind of part of the community of like the Bagel Cafe and the Camden Inn, is we're hoping to work with them a little bit as well, providing some breakfast items for their people coming in, and so we're really excited to be a part of the community and working together with Green with Envy and everybody there. So.
And you'll be open.
Yeah, so
every day? What from?
Oh, yeah.
Just, use the platform.
Okay, yeah. What's up, everybody? Yeah, we hope to see you. So, yep, opening Friday. We're planning on being open 7 days a week. And our hours will be 7 to 4 as of now. That's how we have it set. So, yeah, if you need a lunch or something quick to go, maybe you don't want to, wait for something to be made, we'll have it. Again, like part of my background too is, I own a gym, and so we wanted to provide quick but also healthy options to people. Great. And so that's what we're looking to achieve.
I'll certainly check it out, because at my age I can use all the energy supplements.
Yeah.
Let's not keep them in suspense any longer, and move to
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the novicular license for Elevate Energy at 25 Mechanic Street.
I second.
motion made and second. Any discussion? All's in favor? And Matt?
Yes, good luck with the new business.
Hey, thank you so much, everybody.
Congratulations.
I
Good luck.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Onward and upward to our fourth item on the list, which is the approval of the proposal to replace the Windjammer floats at the head of the harbor. And I believe this is all.
I'd recommend you table this.
Table that.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Although we are making some progress with
Yes.
the blue foam disposal situation, but
Yes. Yes, okay.
this has helped to do that. So
Okay, I got a motion to table this one.
I move that we table this
I
one.
second.
Motion to table made and seconded. Any discussion? Not hearing any. Go for roll call. Not roll call. A vote. All's in favor? Matt?
Thank you for tabling.
And also maybe a good opportunity to remind everybody that by the end of 2022, everybody has to get rid of their blue polystyrene floats if they're unencapsulated. So that's part of what's triggering this discussion. But I'm sure it's going to come as a shock to everyone when it finally comes up. So remind all your neighbors.
Okay, so it's tabled, and make a note. The fifth item is the discussion, or actually approval of the draft in our packet for the letter to, I believe part of it is a letter to the county commissioners and Midcoast Internet related, and this is a follow-on from the commissioners meeting of last week, I believe, on October 12th.
Yes, so
Remember something.
for any of you who either watched the meeting or paid attention to any of the reporting of the meeting or even spoke to anyone associated with Midcoast Internet who was at the meeting. It was incredibly contentious, fairly frustrating for, I'd say, all the municipalities in Knox County, and it sort of brought up an issue that's bigger than, the desire of a few municipalities to sort of work together to bring high-speed broadband to the region. It's come up as more of a issue with the process that the county is using for the disbursement of ARPA funds, and concerns that, we have 3 commissioners who are unilaterally making decisions that should be made on a countywide basis through a mechanism that currently exists within the county to get input from all the municipalities, which is the budget committee. So as you all know, Knox County has a budget committee, and the members are elected, and they represent the various towns throughout the county, and they have not been included in this process to date. And the lack of any municipal involvement in any of the decisions surrounding ARPA funds.
Maybe you should tell everybody ARPA.
Excuse me. So the American Rescue Plan Act funds, so when those funds were handed down from Congress, it was provided as direct relief on a county and municipal level. So all the municipalities across the state have received the first disbursement of ARPA funds, as well as the counties. So Camden, when everything is said and done, will receive close to $500,000. And there are pretty specific guidelines for what that money can be used for. Knox County received $7.7 million, and a lot of the counties across the state, proportionally received the same amount of money. So that's a great model in states where the counties have much more responsibilities that people would typically associate with a municipality in Maine. But the counties in Maine don't do a lot of those things, like providing infrastructure and planning services and a lot of things that, in Maine, people rely on municipalities for. So having so much funding go to the counties when they don't perform a lot of the functions that funding was designed to fund has put the county in a position where they're really trying to figure out the best use of them. It's a little bit clearer on a municipal level because it's for things like water, sewer, broadband. It can be used for assistance with people who were most hard hit economically by the pandemic. That's another important aspect of it. But the guidelines for how that can be used for those purposes are a little more unclear than things like water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. So the county called for a request for proposals for the use of those funds. I believe they received 35 applications, and the process was going to be that they would work with an attorney to review them. And we met with our commissioner for Camden, Rockport, and some of the other surrounding communities. And there seemed to be some promise that it would be a collaborative process, which I thought, Camden didn't specifically put in an application at all. We supported the town of Rockport, who was putting in an application for broadband, which would be part of a broader network that would service the area. But Camden didn't put anything in specifically, so we just were hoping that it would be a collaborative process, and regardless of what the commissioners picked, we would be able to sort of work with them, whether it be support for affordable housing or broadband or whatever the issue may be. But after the contentious meeting with the commissioners, it's pretty clear that they really don't want any input from municipalities and aren't very interested in working with us. So in response to that, Camden is working with the other service center communities, namely Rockport, Rockland, and Thomaston, to just try and get some sort of process in place for how those funds are going to be spent. And that all is sort of spelled out in the county's charter through the budget committee process. So that's what this letter speaks to.
County budget process.
County budget process.
And as a matter of note, you probably all know this, but Camden is the highest contributor dollar-wise to the county's budget.
Yes, so the way that the county is funded, it's all based on assessment. So the towns with the highest assessed value pay the largest proportion of county tax.
And it's not small change. It's over 2 million, 1.6, $2 million, I think. something
Yeah,
like
and
that.
rising all the time.
Rising
I
all
mean,
the
Yeah, and I guess just to give an example, the proposed budget by Knox County for this coming fiscal year will be a 10% increase over last.
And we use much fewer of the services provided also. I mean, if you look at like the sheriff's department, Camden has its own police department. There are other towns that are really relying exclusively on the sheriff deputies, but it's like and we understand that everybody kind of has to work together, and it's like the schools, but I mean, we are funding a massive amount of stuff that we already almost don't use, so.
Yeah, anybody else want to, Mark, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just have a quick comment, Bill, on the sixth line down. It reads, no authority for the 3 county commissioners to spend $7.7 million. The 2 has an additional O that doesn't need to be there. Just a correction.
Yeah, there's a couple dings and diddles that need to be inserted, as well as, for what it's worth, as you note, the letter includes references of Paul Gibbons on behalf of Thomaston, and we are just waiting for that feedback from Thomaston as well to send the letter on that point.
Other comments?
Yes.
Sophie.
I attended the meeting at the county commission's office last week with Matt as well. And the first thing I want to say is I was amazed by the number of people who took time off in the middle of the day to come and share their concerns, comments, proposals with the county, and personally shocked that they wouldn't be heard. And I don't think it's part of a democratic process not to hear people. So that's the first thing that really shocked me. And I'm really happy that we're taking steps. Bill, thank you so much for working with other municipalities to voice our concerns and make sure that there's due process in the way that those funds are going to be allocated and that we can have a voice in the process as well.
Thank you, Sophie. Allison.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit staggering and has been to watch no matter what you think about how the fund should be expended, and of course there's tons of worthy things to spend those funds on, but the idea that 3 county commissioners should be making a decision about $7.7 million in funding, it's just, especially because of the way we do things in each of the towns, that's not the process. It's, not even 5 select board members can make a decision really on anything. All we can ever do is give voters the opportunity to vote on a recommendation. And so it was surprising to me that they would even, the first part that they think they have sort of a loophole where the unanticipated federal funds that they could spend those on their own without going through the budget process. But I don't understand, I guess, why they would want to, because there are opportunities maybe sometimes to say, oh, well, we don't really have to ask voters for this, and it's not even that they would have to ask voters. They would just be needing to go through their budget committee process. Like, have they said anywhere why do they feel that this law is requiring that they make the decision by themselves? Have they given a reason for not? I'm supportive of sending the letter. I just was wondering if there's a reason that they've given for not going through that budget process that somehow is better for the community at large than.
I don't think
It's
there's.
just that they don't want to, like they've discovered that they don't have to, or they feel they don't have to and they've chosen not to, or do they sometimes feel that maybe it would be better not to? I don't know.
I have no idea what their thought process is. It hasn't been made apparent. And even worse than what you just suggested, there could be a 2-to-1 vote by the county
Right,
commission.
that's a
It could
good
be
point.
Two people
Yeah.
allocating $7.7 million.
Yeah.
With no
It's Mark, go ahead.
I just want to add, if you're not aware of the meeting, not only did they not allow people from the towns to talk about what we're trying to do, they allowed Spectrum Cable to come and make a presentation to them about all the wonderful things they're doing. One of the things that's come up with in talking to the cable companies previously, one of the goals of the broadband situation that we're trying to work on is that high-speed fiber will go to every single residence and every single business. And the corporate cable companies have admitted under questioning that that's not in their plans. They will only take care of it if it's within the ability of their financial situation to take care of people. They have no plans to conduct fiber to every individual, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. You know, we're trying to do something for every citizen of these towns, and that's really disappointing.
Right. And I think in general, as a professional and having been involved in numerous, besides Camden, meetings to chair and to lead, I have real difficulty watching those meetings. It's truly upsetting. It's callous, it's demeaning to individuals. I can understand if there was a rationale. To Allison's question, I don't think there's any rationale. I think it's emotional, and it has to be in my list one of the worst led meetings I've seen in terms of ability to discuss an item, to get accurate information, to glean the information, to review the information and come up with substantive decisions rather than shooting from the hip, because that's what it feels like.
And also the fact that the commissioners have received enormous amounts of information per their own admission, but none of it is public. So the lack of transparency in the process in sharing the information they've received is also a concern to me. It's really easy to create a website and put everybody's comments and letters of support or against or for. There's a lot of different ways they could have chosen to make that information public and transparent, and their process transparent and public, and they have decided not to do this.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, even just, I've mentioned this before when our representative was here, but the minutes from the Knox County Budget Committee, you try to go on there to see, they stop in 2015.
Yeah.
In 2015, they stopped posting the minutes, and I've complained about it, and I understand that mistakes get made. I mean, Camden is by no means perfect, and we're constantly finding things that, like, oh shoot, that didn't get posted, but this is just.
So with that, Audrey, do you need a motion from us to basically to be on the bandwagon with the other towns in accordance with this letter as written?
Yes, please. And I guess some flexibility if we need to change simple things.
Sure.
Okay. I'll make a motion that, I'll make a motion that we approve the letter to the county commissioners regarding the Midcoast Internet situation and the spending of their funds. The letter that we have in the packet, and is making allowances for any changes that need to be made.
Was this?
Motion made in second. Discussion. Go ahead.
So I guess to me this letter was just really about the process.
Yes.
And I think it would be maybe a mistake to try to combine the Midcoast Internet thing with this, because I don't know if we want to get caught up like weighing in on whether it should go to the Homeless Coalition or Midcoast Internet or anything like that. I mean, I would just the letter should just, I think, stick to the process.
But the process,
I think it does now, but I didn't know if it would.
So the point that was made at the commission was that comments specifically in support of the Midcoast Internet Coalition would not be accepted by the commission that day.
You're right. But
I think I saw that, and I think that that's problematic, and whatever the rules are about accepting public comment, I mean, I'm offended that they let Spectrum speak, but I think this, really, the fact that they decided to sort of shut down discussion about that highlighted this sort of much larger issue, which is the one that we're really objecting to, which is not just how that one meeting was run, but sort of this process that they've outlined.
Correct.
And so I think confounding those issues. I think the letter is very well done.
Yep.
Then why don't I amend to say that, make a motion to approve the letter as written with whatever corrections or additions need to be made, sent to the county commissioners.
Yeah, I mean,
that's simple.
Approve that.
I second.
All right. Motion made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Matt?
Send the letter.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much, Matt.
If not, we'll send them Kona.
Right, there we go. Now on to our sixth item, which is the appointment of our tree warden. Audra?
Yes, so I am requesting that you appoint Dave St. Laurent, the tree warden, and Rick Seibel as I believe the language in the ordinance is the alternate tree warden. The reason being, this is all part of, succession planning, and for many, many years, and this is a really great opportunity to thank Bart Wood, who recently passed away, who served as Camden's tree warden for decades. Bart was a very dedicated volunteer to the town of Camden, and he will absolutely be missed. He was incredibly knowledgeable and passionate about trees and dedicated a lot of his time to, working with the town and advising us. And he was really the driving force behind the tree planting program for a very long time. So it's very sad that Bart has passed. He will absolutely be mourned by the town. So just wanted to acknowledge Bart during this time and thank him. And Rick Seibel took over from Bart after many years of working as the alternate tree warden. And now that Rick is transitioning into retirement, it's a good opportunity to appoint Dave St. Laurent, the Public Works Director, as the tree warden, and Rick Seibel as the alternate.
Okay. Mark?
I wanted to,
Sophie, go ahead.
I'm delighted, and I would like to tie this conversation to comments we received from Keith Blizzard a couple of weeks ago he brought the attention to the town on the need to rethink the way we want to have trees, and I would encourage Dave St. Laurent and Richard Seibel to get in touch with Keith and listen to his proposals and comments, because I think they are super interesting.
Great.
So I don't know what the process is, but in your ear.
Before I make a motion, I would like to say, if you have not noticed them already, we have new trees out in downtown Camden now. There are cutouts in the road for when we redid the roads, and there are some new trees planted downtown, which is hopefully just the beginning of what we'll see planted in our streets. I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Dave St. Laurent as our Camden tree warden and Rick Seibel as his alternate.
A second.
Motion made and second. Discussion?
Just quickly, has anyone asked David if he would like to be tree warden?
No, he doesn't have a choice.
Conversations about this.
He loves it. He loves doing it. Yes, good question, though. Good question.
And then just a further comment. So I was with Dave and the gentleman who are planting the ginkgos. So those are ginkgo trees that are going in, and we had a discussion about those the other day.
Yep.
Right. With that, thank you, Matt. Anything else? With that, I'll go for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? For, and Matt?
Ginkgos. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Motion approved. And again, to Audra, the town, we officially send condolences to the family of Bart. They know what a person he was, and yes, he will be sorely missed. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yes, he was a wonderful volunteer.
Absolutely. Beyond the call of duty, as it were.
Yes.
And our last item on action items tonight is the revocable licenses at the public landing, which are in our background.
Yes, so this sort of dovetails on a discussion that we had pretty recently about the special provisions in the day sailor license agreements for parking. So as we were, going around and looking at historic agreements that the town had, particularly for parking, we found some license agreements that were made back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that pertain to parking, and it's a few spots on the public landing, as well as, approval to use a section of the public landing for private use and landscape that area. So I think a lot of people would be surprised to find that, there's an area where I think there's a perception that it's privately owned, but it's actually owned by the town. Right. So, I thought that it was something that was worthwhile to bring to the select board's attention, both because of the parking issue and sort of the desire to clean up a lot of special agreements that sort of give, I guess, special privileges to certain businesses or properties in regards to parking, as well as space that is currently used for private purposes that the select board might want to consider being used for or being made available for public purposes.
Just to put more flesh on that bone, though, as I read the revocable licenses, were they written to previous owners of the building?
Yes, so that's a good point, is that the licenses, from what I understand, and Bill can correct me on this, they're non-assignable, and they were all granted to the building owners during the time period when they were granted, so 98, and I believe it was 2001 and 2002.
Okay.
So I did have a chance to have a discussion with one of the building. I think a lot of those buildings maybe are still under the same ownership, but there's one that's different. And I mean, I'm not sure that the town necessarily has the most up-to-date everything.
Sure.
I spoke with Tom Stallman, and he told me about when he took over when he bought when he took over the building, did come to the select board, and there was a process, and he got insurance, and so it was sort of transferred. I think maybe we don't have all the.
I don't know.
The stuff in our packet, I'm just saying, might not be the most up-to-date version of everything, but I don't think that really changes anything.
Yeah, the fundamental issue, as I
really.
hear you, is this is town property. We are in a parking demand situation. That's the major consideration that we're addressing here.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we've talked about sort of the work that we're doing on the parking management study, and the desire to sort of make sure that we're being fair and equitable in how we allocate parking within the town, and trying to address any of these agreements that sort of give special privileges to any particular business or property or group.
Mark, go ahead.
Question, are there any other parking considerations we given to any other buildings, apartments in the town anywhere?
Oh, I'm certain that if we keep digging, we'll find more.
Okay.
It's just a matter of, it's a matter of Janice and I going through a lot of old files and finding, a lot of these agreements, the way that they were structured is that they just kept on, they keep on going. There's no point at which they end. They end when the select board says they end.
Yeah.
It's just like the thing we did the other day with the, with the fence in the right of way. That was also a revocable license. And a lot of the time they make lots of sense with, my understanding was that part of the public landing was just kind of a mess before, and the town just had no bandwidth to deal with it. And it made lots of sense for a business owner to come in and make it look nicer, and it works for everybody. So
it doesn't make sense to revoke the entire agreement, because there are a few examples where, yes, the agreement does give some parking privileges to the property, but it also gives them the ability to build a deck.
Right.
That, the footings for the deck are on the public landing technically. I mean, that's not the kind of thing that for any reason that would need to be revoked by the town.
Right.
But it's more of, the parking side of it, and any sort of space on the public landing that's currently used by private property owners that could be used in a more public manner.
We have one hand being raised. Would you please come forward? If you could kindly introduce yourself and your residency, please, I appreciate it.
Thank you. My name is Lee Montgomery, and I'm a resident of Lincolnville. I'm fifth generation Camden.
Just for the record, I just presume that the select board has no problem with a person from out of town speaking to this meeting.
Well, I'm a member of Camden Harbor Properties, which is one of the agreements that.
Understood. No, it's just that you're not I'm just making it clear you're not a resident. We're allowing you to speak.
I'm not a resident of Camden.
That's fine. Let's go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead.
I conduct business in Camden, and I'm a member of Camden Harbor Properties, which is one of the entities that has an agreement with the town. These license agreements, the first one was in 1998, and it was to put in writing a verbal agreement that we had through Roger Moody back in the early 70s to, in exchange for us maintaining the portion of the town land that runs from the back of our buildings, 11 through 29 Main Street, down to the first row of parking on the public landing. So since the early 70s, we have maintained that portion of land. In 2002, we approached the town to build the deck on that, on a little bit of that piece of land, which Audra referred to. So in exchange for that, we have a license to use 4 parking spaces, and the Stamens have a license to use 2 in that gravel parking area. So there are a total of 6 spaces that the town gave us licenses for. So that's the end of what I had to say. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for coming. Other comments, questions?
I mean,
I have a question of the woman, Lee, I have a question for you. They'll need to come back up. Sorry.
We'll throw a microphone at her.
I know it's something you've had in the family for a long time, the buildings. Would the property company understand that maybe at this point it may not be, with the parking crunch that the town has, it may not be conducive to continuing the agreement for the town?
That would be up to the town, but the bilateral agreement is for the exchange for the parking, we maintain that section of land.
No, I understand.
So, and it's a very beautiful park-like piece of property that is on the alleyway down between Sea Dog and our first building.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's as we go through the parking crunch with the town, parking is different now than it was in the 70s when, I guess you said, the first verbal agreement started, and even in the 90s and early 2000s. And we're going through a whole parking consideration and study now about how to open things up. And I just want to make sure that it's something we have to consider.
Well, how many spaces did we lose with the most recent renovations of the curbing? Do we know? It was like 12?
No.
6, actually.
A net loss of 6.
And lots of 6.
And that was required, that wasn't a choice that we had, and actually we fought with the Department of Public Works. We legally had to give up those spaces because of laws requiring space between crosswalks. You know, that's not something.
Could be, I don't know. I wasn't a part of it.
Yeah, we had no choice whatsoever in giving those spaces, and they originally wanted to take more, and we fought them to keep what we want. So, but that was not the choice of the Camden at all.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, board? You got fundamentally a couple of options, since the least of which is we have to update. If we're going to continue with these licenses, they need to be brought to current, language and agreement. And to your point, Audra, specify between, or alternatively, as I read them, we can also provide a 90-day notice of revoking these licenses, returning. But as you suggest, not the whole package, because we don't want to. We're not trying to be punitive here, and if we're taking over for parking purposes 6 spaces, which is, it's a big deal to the town, to the taxpayers, we need to also consider the landscaping part of it too.
Yeah, and I would say that, we have some time to work on this. So depending on, what you decide, Bill and I can work on, a new agreement that addresses the parking issue. It would maintain, the ability for the decks to remain where they are. I guess the big question would be sort of the landscaped area and what the select board would like done with that.
Mark.
Allison had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Allison, I missed you.
I mean, I think this is one of those perfect opportunities for public input. I mean, it's public property, and it's been a long time since the use of this has been discussed. I think it will come as a surprise to many longtime Camden residents that this is public property. I know, like, for years, I have asked my kids to walk around that space, believing that it was private property. It's come up in discussions about the Harbor Walkway and whether there was, there's been interest by town committees before to try to create better pedestrian access through here. And I've just seen so many times that area believed sort of to be off limits, that it was just assumed to be private property. And so we get bombarded all the time by requests for different things on the public landing. Kayak racks. For how many years have we told the community that there's just no space for kayak racks? There's just no way we can fit anything more in. The bike rack currently oftentimes is completely inaccessible because there are so many cars around each one of these parking spots that you can't get handlebars through, like, to even get to the bike rack. So there are, there's just so much competition for use of the public landing. And I think knowing what we would even do with this part, if the town takes it back over, I don't know whether it would be right just to open that up to public parking, or if this is an opportunity for all the people that have said they want more green space. I recently read through all of Mrs. Bach's commentary from when she helped back in 1935, when she gave $15,000 to the town to help them clean up all of the burned buildings down here, and there was an Olmsted plan that was supposed to go along with that, and the condition was that we slowly implement that plan. But little by little, the town said, nope, we need more parking. The businesses said they wanted access here, and it kind of just got whittled down, and it never happened. So this, before we say sort of what we would, I guess I wouldn't necessarily want us to take any action tonight, but would want to really actively solicit citizen input. One of the things that Tom Stallman mentioned about the parking situation here is that maybe in the past it was also, having public parking in here could be a little complicated because of access, and if there were a fire or a need to access that for safety reasons, that having known known people there, they can be asked to move their cars. I don't really know if that's the way it's still operating, but there was also mention of occasional use of, so I kind of went through it, like, trying to figure out, okay, well, what are the benefits possibly of the town now? Occasional deliveries that go through there in order to not, have congestion on Main Street. But I think overall, this is a really good opportunity to ask the public what do they think? What should we be doing with public property here?
Probably suggest a parallel course. Number one, I agree with Mark. Let you go first.
I was going to say, I wouldn't want to take any action tonight. Like, we're going through a whole parking study right now. And the reason I asked about what other agreements are out there, is sort of, I don't think it's fair to take, one at a time and not look at everything and make a general fair decision for all the kind of agreements that are out there. Look at them all.
I would just like to say that I do not agree with trying to get everything comprehensively at once. It's just not possible.
Okay.
No, I agree. I think it sounds like, yes, I agree with the non-vote tonight. I don't need to rush at this, but I think there could be a parallel track. One is Allison's suggestion to solicit public input to know that this is, on the website, that this is town property. That knowledge should be out there. We should get it out there. But in parallel, I think you and Bill can have a meeting with the individual licensees and say, look, this is our thinking, because it's not fair. Ms. Montgomery came tonight and gave a few minutes of talking. She probably has a lot more comments she'd like to make in a more substantive sit down about the pros and cons. We may learn something from that aspect also. So I would suggest that parallel course going forward.
Yeah, so Bill and I can work with the property owners to where it makes sense, draft new agreements. And at the same time, you can work on soliciting feedback on, what you would like to see there. I'd also like to make the comment that the grassy area that's right, on the shoreline there, that's just incredibly, it's eroding. It's been trod on a lot. We need to do some restoration work on that bank. So I think that, that gravel area and having the ability for pedestrians to walk on that instead of the shoreline while we're doing some restoration work is going to be really important.
Great. That's great.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, no grass can grow there. It's so popular.
So I think it's pretty clear that while I'm listening, the board can disagree. I think the parallel course is what we'll proceed with, and because this is an action item, I'd like the motion to table it.
I'll make a motion that we table the revocable licenses at the public landing.
Second.
I second.
Now, what is the difference between tabling? I don't think
and the parallel course of action.
It's still an open action. There's no action being taken on the action item, so we can.
We want to make a decision on it
we don't want to make a decision.
No, but I do think it's,
Do you recommend an action?
that it be brought up at the next.
That's tabling and bringing it up next meeting.
Yeah.
Sure. It's
I mean,
not going to go away. It's not going to go away. It's just being tabled for tonight.
Because in order for it to be, I think it's a 90-day notice. Is that what the agreement specifies? And so, if we do need to use some of that area in order to do some of the restoration work that needs to happen, or I think we should have a mechanism because the reason that this happens is because things get tabled, they get talked about, and then they just go in the vault, and no mechanism requires them to come back up. It's the same thing with the parking and the day sailors. And the result has been that a huge amount of public property is used, in a way that really doesn't get to be evaluated by the whole public, and because it's it's always uncomfortable for us to do this. I really don't like doing that. I didn't like voting against giving the day sailors parking last time, and so the tendency for us is going to be to always kick these things down the road when they're a little bit uncomfortable because we all know these people. So
we have a motion and a second to table it. We can vote on that, and we can change the motion if you want to another action if you like.
No, I mean, to me, the issue is addressing those special agreements.
Yep.
It's addressing those special agreements in a fair and equitable way.
Yes.
Because we are in a the parking situation is going to become untenable very quickly. This summer was already untenable. And I really want us to be proactively managing those issues and managing those agreements. So I understand we can't not review them all at once because we don't know where they all are. Nope. But as they come up in front of the select board, I think I encourage all of us to be proactively managing them. So I agree on tabling the vote tonight, but I would encourage Bill and Audra to start looking into the 90-day revocation process and set up a process for the public input on this piece of property. I think that, to me, that's satisfying.
Those are the parallel tracks we mentioned that Audra is going to go forward, built this. The only difference is at this point, we're not voting on approving a notice of 90-day revocation. That's the only difference that I heard from Allison's perspective. But we have any other discussion on this motion?
I mean, should we be doing the 90-day revocation and then knowing that no matter what, we're going to have to do a different agreement?
We're going to vote on this motion, and if you want to make another one, that's up to you. All those in favor of tabling this item, please raise your hand.
We're tabling.
I just was wondering if you were going to ask Audra's opinion.
Matt, one second. Matt, go ahead. Matt?
In favor of tabling, thank you.
Okay, 5-0. Now go ahead, ask your question.
Well, I was going to inform my vote. I just think sometimes it's good just to say, is this a process that you would recommend, Audra, or do you have something else? Or
I mean, I think it's similar to the whole day sailor discussion where we just, part of it is making sure that this stuff actually gets brought up again and doesn't get forgotten or sidelined.
All three will be. The three I've been talking about. We tabled one other item tonight also.
Well, maybe.
Windjammer floats.
Well, maybe we should bring up all the hanging parking items next time.
Yeah, we can do.
I think it's all important. I would like to see conversations, maybe with Audra or with Bill, with the day sailors, with the Montgomery building people, so that everybody is informed before we make decisions.
A lot of conversations with the day sailors.
But the issue is that we have a lot of special agreements.
It's true.
So we have to outline a process that's the same for everyone.
Agreed.
And
that's-
so I'm just questioning, if we have
I agree.
100 special agreements, do we want Bill and Audra to sit
No.
with 100 people? So
No.
we have to find a better way to be diligent and fair and equitable.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with noticing people, letting them know as we need to do here with revocable licensees, and same thing with anybody else we decide on, but they all we brought to the table again. Probably the next meeting, unless Audra and Bill say we're not.
And I'm pretty confident if we go digging, we'll find more,
Oh, I
because
guarantee
looking
you
all
will.
over the public landing in the downtown where there's a lot that's heavily used.
There's 200 years of history here. There's a lot of stuff in the woodpile. We're just finding a few.
We've got that funny thing out over here with the,
Yes, yes.
the
All right.
Opera House parking that no.
All right, that item is tabled. Thank you. On to our 3 discussion items, the first of which is the Harbor Committee appointments.
So I brought this to you because it was sort of the step one in tasking the Harbor Committee with a number of things that you had talked about
Right.
assigning to them.
Right.
So given the pandemic, given the sort of approach to, normally there's a committee appointment process that happens at the same time each year. That just didn't because of the pandemic and a number of other things that came up over the past 18 months. So with the exception, I think, of maybe 2 positions on the Harbor Committee, the rest of them have technically.
Not members.
This was confusing though, because what was in our packet is wrong.
It is.
Mark's not on the Harbor Committee anymore, is he?
No, he is.
He's just not chair.
He's not. He's just
Right.
the incorrect statement is he's not chair.
Yeah.
Josh is chair.
My question is, we have 2 applications in the packet. How many openings do we have on the committee?
So currently we have 1 because Kathy moved out of town. So two openings. These really weren't solicited. These are just applications that sort of trickled in from residents who are interested. And, I'll leave it to you as to what you want to do with all of this. I know there was.
Well, I think.
Well, we have opening. What do you mean when you say openings? Are you just saying it's like automatically assuming that everybody that's already on there is going to
Continue.
if everybody's term is up, then we have
You have a lot of openings.
we have almost all of them are open positions.
5 openings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Well, those 2 applications just came in. We didn't really.
Yeah, there was no
solicit,
solicitation for them.
I think in my opinion, there should be a solicitation for interested parties, and I think we always have to consider change out of members of all of our committees if there's other people interested. Not about qualifications, by the way, it's about interest level, and sometimes, in my opinion, you don't have to be an expert in energy to be on the energy committee. We have some very bright people in our town who really adjust well and bring a different perspective to a committee, even without that specific interest. In fact, sometimes the interest level, it can on occasion can become myopic. So,
Right. I think that's a big thing with the committees, that sometimes we've segregated all the people with a specific interest into like the Conservation Commission or the people that are good at design are on the design team, when really we kind of need them spread out across all of our other things. Or like we're having right now a huge problem with quorum for some of our basic town functions of like ZBA. Like people are, so encouraging some of the other committees that aren't meeting right now there's a lot to do with the harbor. I think we need to look a little bit about what we're going to want the Harbor Committee to do and really think like, okay, if the Harbor Committee is going to be playing an active role in determining the future of the public landing, if we're going to be tackling that a little bit, then we really need some people like from the Meg Barclays of the world that can help with that kind of stuff. It's not just the people that know about schooners and floats. And so kind of defining a little bit what the issues are that we're going to really need the Harbor Committee for, I think will help us know what we, who we really need and who we might need to pull from some other places.
Yep.
Like, I want some people's input on, like, how we interpret Sherman's Cove and whether there should be ramps and floats. But if we're going to be talking about whether the walkway should be made of composite lumber or, like, pressure treated, then, you know, it's different people, you know.
Design issues.
So do we want to create a process for people to voice their interest in becoming members and have a process with a deadline?
We want to reinstate and,
Yeah.
you know, the effective use of those committees we want to do as advisory committees to the select board. First of all, the Harbor Committee, by ordinance, we're required to have it. So the list is started. That's why Harbor Committee is showing up now as one. And of course, right parallel, and maybe even higher, in the charter requires the Conservation Commission.
Yep.
We've got to get more active with soliciting, you know, people to these committees. For your point, well said. I think the cross section of people should be more mixed. Because of the possibility of various items that could have economic, financial, practical, harbor related, all those in this situation, much as the Conservation Commission has a myriad of talents that you want to have on a board, on a commission like that. So the frustration sometimes for me is to just say, yes, we're advertising for it, we don't get any responses. It's more of a pull.
Right.
It's more of an advertising pull. And maybe the pull, to me, is to solicit some of the people that we do know on various committees that may be an asset to a different committee. And
But I would also encourage, first of all, if the two people who have applied tonight are not listening to us tonight, they might not be on Zoom. We don't know.
It may be on YouTube.
They might be on YouTube.
They might.
But I think, that, you know, first of all, we have to thank them for volunteering, because volunteering
Absolutely.
is important. And that I also want to send a message to them that we're not disregarding their application.
No.
And it's really important that we do this, because we're always looking for more volunteers, right? So we can discourage them. But I really do think we need to put a process in place fast.
Yeah, I do too.
And define a little bit what we're going to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the Harbor Committee going to be mostly focused on reviewing the changes to the possible changes to the harbor ordinance, to, you know, the Lyman Morse stuff, or is it going to be Steamboat Landing and negotiating that, or is it going to be
Landing.
Because if we end up with like big ordinance changes to review, then they're really going to have to be focused on that. But if that doesn't materialize, then there's going to be bandwidth that's available for kayak racks, hopefully.
So what's the process for us to decide on the priorities of the Harbor Committee?
Yeah, that's the first step, because you know, I think that's a collective decision that we have to make about, you know, there's Lyman Moore stuff going. Steamboat Landing is a big deal. The landing is a big deal. We're applying for grants, I believe, for the landing. That's probably the biggest carrot in the bunch, that one. And there could also be others, but we need to define that. But more importantly, the process of, to me, I don't like our application. I think it's very weak. I think, you know, I've seen them as simple as saying, I volunteer, and that's all it says. I don't know everybody in town as much as some of the others may, but it's a personal thing too. But I think there's two things going on in parallel here, and they have to happen at the same time. So I suspect what should probably happen is our appointed liaison should come up with a recommended scope.
Aren't you the appointed liaison?
I'm changing that tonight. No, our appointed liaison should bring to the table for the board a recommendation on some of those, based on some discussions on some of the things you just mentioned as far as scope goes, and so we can prioritize that as a board.
I mean, I've personally always really just wanted to have a joint meeting with the current members of the Harbor Committee and talk about what their observations were, get to know them. I know that might not be everybody's first choice, but I feel like when we don't have a kind of like a working relationship and knowing what's important to each of these people, some of them I know and some of them I don't, it's just really hard for me to know what the committee needs more of and what, I think we're going to need to hear like from Josh about whether it's going to be manageable. That's a question I get all the time is like, how is it going to be that Josh is the chair of the harbor committee with all this slime and more stuff? Like, that's like a big question that we haven't had an opportunity, like a forum to discuss it moving forward. Are we going to need to replace Josh or aren't we? Or I'm not singling you out. It's just these like questions that are going to have to be talked about. So.
But to your point, your earlier point was the cross-section of the members may be a function of what is on the table to work on.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you got a chicken and egg. You got to start somewhere, and I think the egg or the chicken, whichever comes first, is to define that. And from there, solicit any membership in the meantime, and then bring those two together. Excuse me.
Do you need some water, Bob?
No, I got some coffee.
Well, my first question is, in looking at the terms, first we need to know who's going to be on the committee. Who are the people that are on the committee that are going to continue?
Well,
I think that's important, and then have the applications. In the meantime, we can in parallel figure out what we want to task them to do. But I'd like to know who's on the committee.
I think
That's
the
chicken and egg discussion.
We just automatic that everybody just stays where they are forever. It's kind of philosophy in Camden. I don't know that that's always. What are you suggesting? We just ask everybody if they want to stay?
I'm more interested in finding out who's if they not want to stay, or are they interested in staying? Have they left? I mean, I've had no official communication. I don't know if you've had any communication with them.
It's limited with Josh a few times, and Elliot also, but as vice chair. But I think you're in my mind, the difference is, we've discussed this before. There's a number of ways of approaching this, not the harbor committee necessarily, but you could do task groups too. If we have an item that's going to be specialized, we can assign a task force of some people from the harbor committee, some people from or that's more surgical way, as we did with the mid-coast internet, and it worked famously. We didn't create a broadband committee to sit in situ forever. That's the other alternative, but both of those suggest a more structured approach at who is on the committee and what the cross-section of the committee should be.
Actually, we should look in the ordinance to see what are the things that the ordinance requires that the harbor committee do. And we'll just start there, and other things are just, we decide whether we want a task force or something, but.
But I like your suggestion, Bob, to have the liaison committee come up with a process.
For each, if this committee? Yeah. I mean, I think they need to identify those things related to the harbor.
Exactly.
That this board thinks we need to be taking a look at. We've mentioned some of them already.
Or maybe, it really isn't just related to the harbor. It's like the things that the harbor ordinance says.
Yeah, both. I think it's both. I think it's both.
That's what we're not doing well.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Then after, because that's the legal structure that we need to operate in.
Okay.
And then the other things we can decide, well, sure, we'll add this onto the harbor committee, or it could be 3 people from the harbor committee and 3 people from.
On a sub-task form.
Yeah, I just think it's the only.
Ordinance review is the big one, right?
Yeah.
That's the big responsibility
That's
that
the
they
big
have.
responsibility. But Josh, do you want to make a comment? You don't have to run.
Hi, Joshua Moore, the chair of the Harbor Committee, resident of Camden. I just wanted to make it clear that these are the members of the Harbor Committee, and have been, were very active, obviously, now almost 2 years ago, I think it was. And then the pandemic hit, and then we were put on hiatus. So we have not met since, I believe it was possibly January. Something like that. The only communication that I have had, and it has been somewhat frequent or regular with the other members, is talking about when can we meet, because they are very eager to meet.
Sure.
So I just want to make it clear that these individuals, I don't want to speak for them, but my relationship with them indicates that they are very interested in being on the committee and serving the town in that way.
And I think that's very clear, Josh. I've heard the same thing, and it's not about. That's not. I hope everybody understands. It's not about individuals and they're good, bad, or indifferent. No, that's nothing to do with that. It's really wrestling with. We've been on a hiatus now for a number of months, and I mean, exaggerating to make a point, we really don't want to start where we left off because what did the Heidi's prove? Nothing. We really want to come back at this with utilizing these individuals more effectively. There may be some individuals on the Harbor Committee I can think that should be on some other town, and maybe they give them the option of thinking about that. I did have one discussion, for example, of a member of a different committee who was very interested in being in the Conservation Commission, and they'd be very well qualified for that. So there's a lot of dynamics going on here, but no, believe me, we understand this team of characters is real strong.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Just dedicated and
thank you,
ready.
Josh. Yeah. Again, we could talk about this forever, but I think the most productive thing would be to try to thresh out what the, pick your brains too, whoever does it, as to what the elements are, Audrey, yours too, because I know you have some ideas on what needs to be looked at. We can bring that to the board and say, oh, look, this, and maybe some of it's separated off to a task group. It's a possibility.
Yeah.
Well, what I could do to help you out with this is I can write a memo outlining what you've asked for. So by ordinance, what are, sort of enshrined responsibilities of the Harbor Committee? What are some issues that have come up that we've all discussed sort of recently that need to go to or would best placed with the Harbor Committee or with some group that's formed around that specific issue or topic.
Okay.
And sort of break it down that way. And I think in the meantime, some direction on how you want to address membership would be helpful for myself and Janice.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge. While you're doing that, I think we need to be actively soliciting on website and every place else anybody who's interested. In the meantime, though, we need to look at us individuals who we think might be an asset depending on that list.
But we just said that we wanted to review the application process in light of what we would want the Harbor Committee to do.
Exactly.
So I think
right, and we did this really elaborate. Remember this application thing before? That was my big thing. We have to make better questions.
Better questions, exactly. Yeah. So
I don't know.
Okay, I have to say I have a very different opinion than I think three of them. I don't know how Matt feels about this. I feel that the board has gone in the direction where we've been arrogant about how we treat committee members and people that want to volunteer for the town. And I'm not happy about it. I think, when people volunteer to be on the committees, all of a sudden we've taken upon ourselves to be, well, you can only do this and only do that. And I don't think that's fair. We have people volunteering, and I think a lot of us started as volunteers and have great ideas and very often more experience and knowledge than we do on the board about particular situations. And for us to be so confining about what they can do and what they can't do, I think is a disservice to the people volunteering for the town. I feel very strongly about that. I feel that we discontinued the committees and have sort of put them off in a time when they could contribute. And I'm not happy about it, and I just want to make that clear.
Okay, thanks.
I just have to say that I completely disagree with that, because the model for citizen participation in Camden has historically been one that is very exclusive of people that don't want to serve on a town committee that is structured like that can't participate that way. It has been almost like the only way to participate in town government is by being on, or to influence decision making has been to be on one of these committees. And there are so many people in this town that are experts in so many things that want to help with one project and can provide. I mean, we have landscape architects and people with outstanding skills. And instead of saying, absolutely, we would love to have you volunteer to help with some drawings for the public landing, whatever, we say, you've got to sit on this committee
for 3 years,
and commit and be, you're going to have everything recorded and the minutes are going to be taken and we're going to let you know who you can meet with and who you can talk to and your email's going to be checked. And it's like, and you have to work on all these other projects that are of interest to the rest of the committee that you might not want to work on, and it's going to suck your energy out. And so, we've done a lot of things to get citizen input and bring in, like the watershed school, for instance. There is no watershed school committee, but we've been doing awesome. So we've gotten incredible input from that school. They've created murals. They've pushed us to do all kinds of things. And that's because the town staff had a little bit of bandwidth occasionally to work outside of that process. It is incredibly time consuming to keep track of the minutes from every single meeting that ever happens in Camden. And when we decide to do that all the time, and we decide to not, it's like a decision to not accept input in any other way sometimes. And so I think we have to move beyond that sometimes, and not everybody who's participating and offering something to Camden is doing it through one of those committees.
I agree.
But I didn't say anything about people volunteering in any way. That, like, what I said is the board over the last few years is the one that's put the controls and the brakes on the committees and forced them into doing things in a different way than they did before, and did very successfully. And I think if we go back and look at the meetings and look at the discussions, that's what I hear from a lot of people that have served on the committees. And I think we've the one that's put the brakes on it. And I have no problem with anybody volunteering to help the town in any way they want. But I think we should be fair to the people that sign up for the committees, to treat them thankfully and gratefully, instead of almost as second-class citizens.
I mean, I talk to a lot of these people and seek out their input on a regular basis, but we can't effectively make use of all of them when we have 25 committees that are like, it's great, it's all fun to start a committee in Camden. That's the solution to everything. When we don't want to make a decision about things, a lot of times, like, kick it to a committee, and then the committee is started, and it never ends. And so then we start more committees. We've started like 5 committees this year, but there's just, town staff doesn't have unlimited bandwidth to run 50 nonprofit, or like mini nonprofit organizations within the town. I mean, a lot of these groups that are committees could be extremely effective as outside organizations too, or like the Rotary Club would not be more effective as a town committee. The Energy Committee could do a lot of what they do, could be outside and just influencing us, influencing the county. I mean, I don't think it's always the right model.
So back to the Harbor Committee.
We need to move forward one second, Ray. But I think, well, Ray, why don't you would raise your hand? Come on up.
Ray Andresen, Camden resident, and I'd just like to remind the board that the committee meetings are open to the public all the time, and different individuals have come to, I've been involved with the Parks and Rec Committee for many years, have come to the committee as a way to make a proposal or an idea, bring up an idea for, we have a member of the select board there, and we also have a member of the Parks and Rec department there, and come up with ideas that turn into some good ideas to be brought before the select board, or either through the Parks and Rec Committee, Parks and Rec department. So those meetings are always open for people. And to say that someone who is a landscape architect has to be on a committee is wrong. They can come to a meeting.
We're saying exactly the opposite.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's not what she was.
They don't have to be on a meeting. They don't have to be on the committee. They can participate in a meeting.
That makes it a task group. That's a task group.
Yeah.
You surgically put people on who have the expertise for the task at hand.
I mean, there's a lot of good. I've told you before. I listen to those meetings sometimes, and I think, oh wow, that was a great point, and I enjoy it too. There's a lot of good that comes from the current system. It's just there does need to be some evolution.
Yeah, and I do believe that a couple of years ago there was a student from the Watershed School who worked with the Energy Committee to come up with an idea about generating power from the Montgomery Dam.
Yeah, and the watershed, they've since determined that
the waters have changed on that.
I understand, Ray. Thank you so much. We're going to have to move on, but I think what we need to do here is, I'm hearing consensus to attack your recommendations from the ordinance and blah, 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 so we can help develop not the 100% list, but the 70% list of what we think the Harbor Committee or the individuals related to the harbor we're going to be looking at, and that the board to agree with that. And then we can, in parallel with that, the message is clear. Anybody who wants to be involved in town, let us know in what area you would like to be involved in, whether it be landscape architecture or whether it be harbor.
I'm sorry, Bob, that's too vague. Can you, do you want like a
Why don't we just let this group tackle the Steamboat Landing issue? I mean, didn't you say do you have anything that we need right away?
she does.
There's nothing wrong. There are a couple things that need some, I am not prepared to tackle the Steamboat Landing issue. I know that. We've got a group of people that could meet and look at that and help to move us forward. We can pay attention to those conversations. I think we'll see some things that
I can give Josh some feedback on what the Steamboat Landing issue elements. And you can take that to that current committee and with objectives and time scale, time frame to give the feedback to the board on that one.
So, okay, are you reappointing all of these people to be on the Harbor Committee? Or are you just...
No.
Okay.
There must be a word for it that...
Are we...
in between time.
Interim.
Interim.
With the task of...
I mean, the obsession with the 3-year appointments and all of this stuff is part of what holds us back.
We don't have to appoint anybody at this point. This is one item. We can call it the Harbor Committee Task Group. I don't care what you want to call it, but these people could certainly work on that. And I think
Steamboat Landing.
Run. Maybe they are going to be sick of it too after this. I don't know.
But in parallel, you still got to come up with what you discuss in addition to Steamboat Landing.
And do you also want to appoint a liaison, a select board liaison?
Well, we should. We have to. We
That
should.
system doesn't work very well.
Yeah, it doesn't, because, to that point, that Ray brought up, I know, and I agree, having town staff spending time with 20 committees during a week is beyond.
I'd also like to make it clear with the Harbor Committee, we can't have the harbor master and a harbor clerk at every single meeting. That's just way too much.
That's part of the problem. It's like,
You can't do it.
Yeah.
when you have 25 committees, you just can't have a staff person
It doesn't
or two
work.
or
That's not
three
gonna
at
work.
every one.
Because that sounds like you're looking for more work, and we're not.
And I also think moving forward, it's really important that the committees need to be their own minute takers.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
have that responsibility. We can post them, we can be responsible for that, but I think that needs to be a
Most of
committee
them actually are,
responsibility.
I think.
Well, all I'm saying is I will be happy to liaise with Josh to go over this item on Steamboat Landing, because I kind of understand that one, but that's all.
You have interest from another board member?
Oh, it looks like Sophie wants to do it.
No.
Boats, parking, I'll take it. Transportation.
Whether by land or sea.
2 if by land, 1 if by sea. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's great.
That's cool.
I love the harbor.
Great
Yeah,
too, Bob, but
I'm terrible.
Well, I don't have a committee liaison.
All right, so just to be clear, I'd like to summarize everything I've been tasked with. I'm going to prepare the memo that talks about responsibilities of the Harbor Committee as enshrined in ordinance, as well as issues that have come up currently.
Yes.
I'm going to reactivate the Harbor Committee as it's currently formed on an interim basis to go over Steamboat Landing.
Yes.
And I'm going to work with Sophie, who is the new Select Board Liaison to the Harbor Committee.
Perfect. Onward and up.
we'll look at Sherman's Cove too, but I don't know if that's too far away.
And Josh about Steamboat Landing, so I'm also in the loop.
Oh, sure, absolutely, no problem.
And one other thing, consideration about how to handle applications, because we don't want to forget the people that have applied.
Yeah, that's true, too. But we still should be actively soliciting, all of us, for, I get interested in individuals all the time saying, how can I'd like to do some stuff with the town, but I don't want to be in a committee for
Right, they're like, I watch those, and then.
I can understand that. Anyway, on to our second discussion item, which
So
is
we didn't
the
need to vote on any of this, right?
Discussion items.
Okay.
discussion. McGuntuck Watershed Restoration. Obviously, we had the workshop last Thursday, which was very interesting, I thought. I think we've had some feedback from some of the consultants who were there.
Yes.
I'm not sure if they're all come in yet or not, but the purpose of this agenda item is really to talk about that and the next steps with, and it feeds into that sequence of events kind of discussion we were talking about earlier on in this.
I mean, yes. So I think that given the fact that, select board workshops, it's usually a specific format when it's sort of designed to convey information to the select board and you guys sit down at a table and listen to a presentation or talk about an issue. This was very different. So I just sort of wanted to follow up with all of you to ask, do you feel like you came away from that as a group with a good understanding of that report? Or do you have any follow-up questions or information that you need from Mike or Carmen or anyone else who was involved in the preparation or the review of it? Or,
it's,
yeah.
of course, we're going to have some ongoing questions, right?
Well, I think
I guess more, another part of this is, so do you all feel sort of comfortable with what's in that report and that you have, I'm not saying like an in-depth understanding, but the broad understanding of sort of what the river restoration broad recommendations are that are presented in the report are. And also, do you feel, what are other steps that you would like, me or members of staff to take to get information out to the public? And do you feel like more needs to be done on that front? So I think those are the first two things that it would be nice to have some feedback from you all on.
Mm-hmm. Well, to start, I thought the event was successful. I certainly enjoyed the discussions, all kinds of discussions with people that afternoon. I think it was a wonderful weather day helped, but I think there was a different environment. I think a lot of people ask a lot of questions that they may not have asked if they were in this room and asking people to come to the microphone to ask a specific question. We allowed the consultants to individually speak without the select board standing over there. The people we're hiring them, and that has sometimes perceived conflicts of interest. So I thought that was all positive. I would have preferred some of the graphics to be a little bit more
prominent, larger,
bigger. A lot of questions keep coming up about what could things look like if, which is going to continue, and I know we're working on that. A lot of questions kept coming up about confusion about what I call the sequence of events, which is nothing more than this is the way we work. If there's a perception that we're going to run off and put something on a special town meeting next week, that's kind of wrong, and that we have a lot of elements that we have to consider to put the flesh in the bone of the various elements, not the least of which is cost, which is one of the things you're addressing tonight, partially on the dam, Montgomery Dam. But I feel personally that the feasibility study is lengthy, but it's done quite well. It provides a lot of food for thought on the options with regard to the river.
Yep. No, I mean, if I can go next.
Yeah, sure.
I thought it was super interesting. I learned a lot from very different points of view and very different expertise, and it really helped me better understand. I'm a junior member of the board, and I've followed the issue, but now that I'm deep in it was necessary for me to receive even more information. I was impressed by the level of the questions that people were asking and were asking me, because a lot of people did their homework and read and came. There was a lady who was a former school teacher. I don't know if she's here tonight, but she came with a Post-it on the executive summary and 6 questions, and she fired them away in great order. But I think it's great that people are asking questions. It's putting the onus on us to really put more information at their disposal, at their fingertips, that information that is digestible, not that 277 pages is not digestible in one form or the other, but I think it was great, and it just reminds me that we really need to make an effort to put more information in the hands of the public, and a process map to identify what are the next steps, knowing that there might be also some, as Audra explained to me, depending on some options, it's going to be like it's like a decision tree maybe.
It's kind of like that, yeah. With timeline's difficult because things are changing. Because Audra, I think you mentioned that for example, the design grant we have to put some flesh on the bone of the dam, removal, kind of an option, is now extended.
Yes, so that I want to kind of separate these two things, because I think that's a tricky thing as well, as sort of the broader watershed feasibility study versus the specific focus on the Montgomery Dam.
Right.
So I guess, in regards to the broader watershed restoration effort, it's a big project. I don't think anybody is under any illusions it isn't going to be a very long-term effort to sort of look at all these different sites and, make decisions on, what the best approach is for each of them. There's, of course, it's all recommended in the report, but, as you all know, the details around how you implement even like a very clear recommendation can get very complicated because there's a lot of different factors in the decision making that go into the details around how that happens.
Yes.
So that's one thing that sort of needs to be decided on a site by site basis is what's the strategy and the approach and opportunities for partnerships around that. So I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of how you approach implementation.
Oh, totally. It's somewhat surgical, actually.
Yeah, and I guess, if you want to specifically talk about the Montgomery Dam, I think a good update is that we do have more time to work on the design and solicit more input and feedback. And there's a good process going with the Library Board of Trustees.
Right.
We have a small group that's very engaged, and they've given a lot of really good feedback. And we've been able to take that feedback and make design changes. And, I think there's opportunity for that to, sort of be extended to a point where, we're closer to getting something that, more people are more satisfied with.
That's just a data point, I agree with you, but to the whole report where there are a number of dams and a number of different approaches in each one, there's quite a bit of work that has to go into each one of those, every one of them, to look at the entire, how many miles is it? From the lake to the, it's number of, that length is each dam. I was going to say damn element. Each element it has its own issues that has to be dealt with, and I think the report has that. But that's the next step, is to put more flesh on the bone of each one of the various dams, and which other ones might be a candidate for removal or candidate for fish ladder or those kind of things. That's just the next. To me, that's the most logical step. Elsa.
So I think what I heard a lot from people is sort of like confusion about what's connected and what isn't, which decisions can be made sort of by themselves or about different dams, and which ones might depend on a larger study. As we all know, or some of us know, that the Montgomery Dam thing came up first because of this like immediate need to invest a bunch of money in it, money some of which wasn't budgeted. And so it kind of forced our hand to look at that one more than the others. And we got, a lot of feedback at that time, back in, after that 2018 report, that people really wanted to know a lot more about the rest of the watershed. Everybody from, organizations were interested in funding it. If there was a plan for the rest of the watershed, there was a certain set of funding agencies that would be really excited about it, if it were to include fish passage all the way. But then on its own, it has merits too. Even if we were never to achieve fish passage all the way to the lake, it has some really marginal habitat benefits, but then also some pretty big resiliency benefits. So there's a different set of funding organizations that would look at that if it were just sort of on its own. We got lots of questions about the, sediment and things like that. That was a big one. And so we were successful in getting this other grant to look really carefully at the rest of the watershed, but and some of that on kind of a broad level, because it wouldn't make sense right now to be looking in a super detailed way at exactly how the fish passage might happen at the lake dams, if there's kind of no reasonable path forward with Montgomery Dam and the lower ones. A lot of what we've heard is that like the funding options for what we might want to do in the upper watershed are contingent upon us kind of doing the recommended options in the lower watershed. The same thing goes for the private property owners. In some ways, this was like a joint planning exercise to help them make some decisions. But if, the Knox Mill Dam, for instance, is not going to be any kind of thing with the Knox Mill Dam, even though it might be very beneficial to the property owners for many reasons to remove that dam, if we don't remove the Montgomery Dam, that really eliminates most of the funding options in the upper watershed. So
a
it's like,
domino effect.
yeah, and so in some ways, like, we need to take some of those things into consideration or not take them into consideration, but it's very hard to, when you're, everybody said at the very beginning of this, these projects take many, many years. It's decades oftentimes of looking at when you look at, when there's 7 dams involved or something, it's, so I think we should recognize a little bit, like, some things might be able to happen right away. There are, a lot of people have been saying, well, why aren't we getting rid of the sediment if we know there's some contaminated sediment in the Montgomery Dam impoundment? That was like one sort of point of agreement that I heard, is like, we all agree that looks terrible right now. There's a bunch of stuff down there that shouldn't be. That sediment is potentially mobile now. And so, it's, we might as well, maybe go ahead and remove some of those things now. I got a lot of questions about like why we're not addressing some of that. Like, if we know there's a little bit of mercury in the Montgomery Dam impoundment, why aren't we doing that now? I heard also from some people that they liked some people expected that to be kind of an introduction to the issue. And I think what we don't have anywhere is, like, we have lots of little bits of information. We have a big report, but we don't have like a sort of a presentation that just goes over, like, these are the basics. I thought having Maine Sea Grant helping was helpful, that maybe if we could get some other organization to kind of help us give a summary of we probably need to do more meetings too.
Yeah, but it sounds like to whoever mentioned decision matrix, we seem to be looking at some of the elements that Allison brought up, a decision matrix involved, the domino effect. If you don't get past the first domino, you ain't getting to the third one. So that may be something we might need to think about.
Yeah, I think there's, for each of them, having that simple sort of outline is going to be really important, because not everyone is going to want to read the 270-page report to get that overview for each of them.
In there. Mark, go ahead, and I have one public person who wants to speak.
I just want to say, I got questions about, I think there's still a lot of confusion about people, and I don't know that was clarified. I'd love to hear back from what you've heard from the experts about what their take was on. I'd like to have feedback from the experts of what their take back was from the questions.
I don't think we've received all of that yet, Audrey.
No, but we've gotten quite a bit, and I think that the focus was very heavily on the Montgomery Dam.
Yes.
To the exclusion of talking about the broader, and we've still gotten some feedback on, like, well, why haven't you done a study on all the other dams in the river? I'm still hearing that.
I do too.
Even the report is published. We've had a workshop on it. So
True.
I think that, this focus exclusively on the Montgomery Dam has confused people, that there was a broader piece of work being done on the whole watershed.
Yeah, it's hard getting past that first hurdle. Mark, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd love to hear their feedback, as Bob mentioned that. But I had questions about, are you taking out all the dams? There's a lot of confusion, so it'd be great that the simple clarity that we can put out there, the better off people will be. One of the questions I had, as they looked at some of the pictures that are out there about if we were to remove the Montgomery Dam, they're looking at the pictures, and it'd be nice to have better designs so people can see clarity. And I was thinking about it today, and I thought a comparison is sometimes when an expert comes in and you're going to redo your kitchen in your house, and they'll come in and say, we're going to do this and do this and do this, and sometimes you have a hard time visualizing it, but you're not going to redo your kitchen and make it worse than it is now. And that's one of the things I want to put out there. If, and this is a big if, because no decision has been made, if we were to make changes, I believe that we would do everything we can to make those changes improve the situation, improve the harbor, improve the look, improve the design, and everything. That would be like a brand new kitchen. And I think people need the clarity to think that not thinking about how the clarity of moving forward and how we would improve things, not just take things down. And I think that's really important.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, young lady.
I beg your pardon?
Come on, Nancy.
So I'd like to make a comment about process. Nancy Cottle Johnson.
Thank you.
43 Pearl Street, Tree Keepers. I haven't attended any of the meetings for a couple of years because of COVID. And also we're very busy, so I've stayed away from town politics, and I've been working on the Charter Commission. But sitting here tonight, there's a room full of people, and many of them have already left, who want to be involved. I mean, this is just what I noticed as a check-in after 2 years, okay? And then, with one exception, everybody up here is talking about how it's sort of too much trouble to have committees involved, and you want to have only experts. You kind of want to interview people and get just the right people who are going to be involved. But you know, we didn't do that with you guys, right? You were elected. Nobody interviewed me when I ran for the Charter Commission to check on my expertise and then decide whether I actually qualified to run or not. And now you're spending quite a lot of time trying to figure out how to persuade all the people to your point of view. Well, maybe we need to say it this way. Maybe we need to say it that way. But you don't want to have committees. You don't want to actually have the people in the town be involved or really listen to what they'd like.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right?
Right.
You want to rule.
I mean, we've got tons of committees,
That's not
Nancy.
really,
Yeah.
that's not really democratic government, in my opinion. But we could just see how people here feel about that. Why don't you just ask people here how they feel about it and if they'd like to be involved?
This is an open meeting. They can volunteer to speak if they want to. Thank you, Nancy. Hold the applause, please. Young lady.
You should see her on a bicycle. She's really fast.
I bet.
Oh, yes. Bernice Berger, Camden. It was an interesting process. It was unusual.
Mm-hmm.
You said something that people are doing it worldwide. Excuse me. And it was like, I didn't know where to be. I didn't want to miss anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself, especially at the beginning, before I could figure out what the process really was and where I should be.
Right.
I know people left because they couldn't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we need to sit within four walls. In my mind, I see, maybe the Opera House panel, experts. I'd like to know what each of the groups spoke about. I only know what I heard, and I may have actually only covered 2 or 3 groups. It didn't feel fair at all. You folks don't have much of an idea of all the questions that we have. And it's interesting just saying this process could go on for 10 years, and it probably will, but we do need to be heard. Lots and lots of questions.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Audra, are you looking for any of this? We would like to get the feedback from the consultants when it's available. I know there was 3 or 4 groups that we asked that information from. Is there anything else you want from us tonight that we haven't discussed?
I mean, yeah.
Okay, come on.
Yes, it would. I mean, it would be nice to know in terms of, do you all want another workshop? Do you want us to prepare written materials? You know, what do you, I guess, what do you need from us to progress this?
I mean, workshops are going to happen. You know, the sequence of events I envision and we're talking about, there's going to be workshops or, well, eventually some public hearings on when we get to you know, any point in any matter on the dam. I'm sorry, any matter on the river. I get that, but to say that we have no, I don't have any specific workshop envisioned at this moment, but doesn't mean it won't be. We're still developing information. I think I'd like we're going to discuss the costs that you put together for the historical about the dam, which is only part of the story.
Yeah, and I just want to separate the Montgomery Dam from the broader watershed.
Well, I think the biggest
restoration study.
Is what is this domino effect that Allison's referred to? That should be summarized.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very important for people to understand what you said about, you know, if you don't do this, then this is the way you go. And if you don't do this, or you do this, just something simple. To Mark's point, it shouldn't be complicated. It should be straightforward and say this is a takeaway.
Well, some of it is complicated, and some of it changes annually based on funding priorities, and some of it there's a need to be responsive. So, I don't know how much. I think part of the question too is how much bandwidth the select board has to want to discuss all of this. I know that do we want to delegate spokespeople, or because there's seemingly a lot of interest in the community in talking about this. We've gotten vastly different feedback about the type of meetings that people want to have. Mm-hmm. We've held hours and hours of open Zoom meetings, and for a lot of that it was just you and I. Sometimes there was another select board there. Sometimes it was Audra. If the whole select board wants to sign up for 12 hours of additional public workshops on this topic, then I'd be delighted to help organize it and include everyone. I know with things like Midcoast Internet and there are things that I would just prefer that Mark go and figure out how we're going to reorganize our ambulance service and then report back. How much does the whole select board, I think, want to keep talking about this in a public forum, or should we sort of encourage maybe partner organizations to be trying to fulfill some of that? Could we have a forum where, how people say they have lots and lots of questions? Well, there's a format now already. You can definitely submit any of those questions. We have, I get lots of questions on my select board email. Is that the right forum? I think we could, we're very open to getting input. How do people, not everybody wants to give that input in the same way. Those traditional meetings, I heard a lot from people that said, I'm not going to go to any more of those meetings, Allison, because I'm tired of hearing the same three people dominate the entire conversation. And they have a question about one thing, and then they have to listen to all this time talking about something else. And so that didn't work for some people. So that's why sometimes written questions, and if we could commit to getting, I don't know what the perfect process is, but.
No such thing.
So,
Sophie.
I think, in my mind, I need clarity on the process overall. And then depending on, do we have to make a decision? Do we have to bring the public in? Do we need public comments? The format of the meetings and the communication is going to be different. So for me, it's hard to answer you right now.
Yeah, me too.
Because I need to know, well, you guys there's a decision and it needs to be made because of the end of the grant. And how are we making this decision? What information do we need to make that decision? I'm taking this as an example. I'm not saying that that's what we need to do. And how we involve the public, and it's always important to find ways to communicate with the town, of course. But I can't answer on what else do I need right now, except the process map, like what's coming next. That's really, to me, that's going to help me decide
when
or understand what more I need to be
What about the actual report, in the actual recommendations? Are we at the point now where most of the select board felt like, yeah, I read that and I agreed with the recommendations made sense, and that there might be confusion? It's more about like, how do we explain these principles? Or are there like select board members that are like, I'm not sure if flooding is really an issue? I guess it would be good to know, or are there select board members that are like, how did we get to this point where it seemed like dam removal was the best thing to be looking at right now for Montgomery? Do we, are we confused about, we made a decision to pursue grant funding to look at what a possible design for grant removal, for dam removal could be. That doesn't mean that any decision has been made about actually doing that. Like, are there, because a lot of this happened before some of these, you guys were here, like, we all wrote a letter of support for getting that grant.
Sure,
but not everybody.
All through the process, the select board has approved doing the feasibility study, doing the design package. This conversation feels, in my squash mind at 8:45, it feels nebulous. I agree with Sophie. I think if I could better answer the question.
So I guess what I'd recommend, this is what I can do.
Okay.
So based on the report, I can sit down with, the consultants who prepared it and some outside organizations with expertise in doing these broader restoration projects, and sort of get a recommended process and that considers sort of all the factors that Allison talked about, like, sort of upstream versus downstream considerations, and what, how they typically approach these projects, and, like examples in other communities and other places.
I think that's a great idea.
So
for the whole, you're talking about for the entire river restoration.
Absolutely.
Feasibility thing. I
Yes.
totally agree with that.
And try to sort of, and it's not going to be, I think it's going to be pretty broad. The first kind of pass that I bring back to you.
Sure.
And we can sort of refine it from there, but that'll give us sort of something more concrete to talk about and figure out.
Yeah, I think
how
that'd be
it's.
great. Go ahead, Mark.
Does anybody else in the public have like a perfect thing, like what we want to see next, or I don't know?
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of focus on two pieces. One is step one, which is discussion of the Montgomery Dam, which is, part of the.
And that is a
whole-
big part of it. I mean, in some ways, we really
It is. But
can't talk about a lot of the other stuff until we
can. Absolutely.
Some people are really want to know, like, do we have a plan for the rest of it? So,
Well, I agree with that, and that's what we're talking about, I thought. Talking about the plan for the, not beyond the first domino. We want to talk about it beyond the first domino. And I think that's what I hear you're referring to. And that's absolutely needed.
And I mean, and I guess it's just sort of making sure that, everyone on the board as a baseline feels like you have a level of comfort with the report, and
But I think that, again, I keep using that term domino effect, but, regardless of whatever the first one is, what are the ones that fall upstream and through the whole river feasibility study? I agree with that, Mark.
I think the one thing the public would like to see is as simple a timeline as we can put together in terms of, because everybody says, well, the decision's been made and it's got to be done by this point, and that if we can put together a black and white timeline to say, this is the reality, this is what we're talking about, this year, next year, so the people have a better idea that we're not trying to cram this all into, everybody feels like, well, we got to take care of the grants, we got to make a decision in 4 days. And that's not the reality, but I think a lot of people feel that way.
There are two separate sequences of events, I use that term. One is for the first domino, which is Montgomery Dam, obviously. But there's also one, to Mark's point, for the rest of the river. And I think they should go in tandem.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should go in tandem, and so everybody understands the bigger picture that we're trying to look at, and notwithstanding the amount of magnification has occurred, logically, on the first domino.
Yep. So, okay.
We have a plan.
I can come up with sort of a process and a timeline specific to the Montgomery Dam, as well as something.
Integrated.
I just don't understand. We're going to put that out to voters when everybody feels comfortable that there's a plan that is likely to be approved by voters. And that, it's the same thing as like somebody saying, what's the timeline for reorganizing our ambulance service? Or what's the, I don't know that.
I mean, I don't know if timeline is the best way to put it.
Depends on when, it depends on how it goes with the library board of trustees. It's like, whenever we reach,
Right.
a lot of the time, it's going to be, when are we going to,
Right.
when are we going to have a complete river walk? Well, when all the pieces come together. It's
Right.
whenever there is nothing that will go out to voters for the Montgomery Dam, for instance,
Right.
until either there's a petition that forces it, or the select board and the majority of the select board and majority of the library board of trustees feels comfortable putting a plan out to voters. That is an incredibly high bar. And I mean, just imagine trying to get that entire group to agree to something. So that should give the community a little bit of
No.
peace, I guess.
The sequence of events I'm referring to is not timeline's dangerous because you don't know how long things are going to take, but we're currently doing something in the library, and that's going to have an end at some point. We're currently doing information to develop costs on the Montgomery Dam, historical stuff. There's a long list of those things that come together to bring, at some point in time, at some point in the sequence of events, there's going to be information culminating, brought to the select board for some kind of a direction on which way it suggests we go with Domino 1. But that also, in the sequence of events, has to go to public hearings on that decision before it goes to ballot. That's very simple, basic stuff that has to occur. And I think the more we keep it simple, keep it up front of people, because I've seen a lot of confusion and concern, whether it's valid or not, that says, on November 3rd, we're going to have an action item to remove the Montgomery Dam. That is not the sequence of events. Right?
People think they're voting on it next week, that we voted on it last week.
So that's the purpose of this. I use that term. Other people use different
We have to make sure that people are clear that, the sequence is different than what they suspect.
That's
not like the county commissioners.
Well put. Right. Well put. But is that clear, Audra?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes.
We're going to move on with that. I think there'll be such a great tool to, and by the way, there'll be a lot of questions on that when we issue that too, because there's this perception that we're going to run to vote next, like Allison said, next week to do whatever. That's not where we're at. There's a lot of information. We got a lot of homework to do. And we're involved in that heavily. But we're going to move on to Montgomery Dam cost report.
Yes.
You want to give us a synopsis of where this is at in total first, Audra, from the view from 30,000 feet, and then any detail you want to provide?
Absolutely. So I did my very best to, so after the discussion that we had and some requests from the community to better understand what has the town of Camden spent on the Montgomery Dam since assuming ownership in the early 90s, I went through old committee reports, old town reports, notes from my predecessor, any invoices that I could find, emails by former town managers and former dam control agents, any sort of historic file that I could find that kind of gave an outline of this information to try and piece together what has been done over the years. And, this is sort of the best I could do in kind of, amassing that information and putting it into a timeline, just to give you some idea of, what is the town spent on maintenance of the dam, what are the different items that the town has, fixed over the years, just to get a sense of, what that historic investment looked like. I don't think that this is comprehensive because, we have some old photographs of, for example, the spillway, which is deteriorating now, but from the old photographs that I've seen, it looked like it was in far worse condition than it even is currently. So that seems to indicate that there was some work done on it. Just not, we can't find the invoices or the reports on it. And also, what's all missing from this is the dam control agent's stipend and, just some of the other costs such as that. Other simple maintenance things like, they had a pretty consistent program of applying Roundup to the dam to kill all the vegetation and the masonry. And
Could not believe that.
well, that's what that was the only thing
I guess
that
it
they.
makes sense because it's so hard to keep the vegetation from growing on it. And that's why they did it. But like, geez.
Yeah. So, and I get the impression that's something that they did at some point on a yearly basis, just from looking at the correspondence in the past. But, being able to find those invoices on a yearly basis is a totally different matter. So, there are some inferences that you can make, but there are some things that maybe you can infer from.
So the validity of this historical only data has question marks.
Yeah, I would say there are some things I could absolutely confirm in terms of what was spent. It was harder to make sure that that was comprehensive.
I think it's valid, but it's not comprehensive.
Well,
Right, exactly. Like all the stuff that town staff did and none of that is really recorded, like the cost of
Not
town
at all.
staff doing anything. There's no operations.
Does it include all past historical capital costs?
Well, and this is, this is sort of like what is capital versus operational. And that line was a lot blurrier around this time because, as you'll see, there's a lot of things around that sort of $10,000 mark. And that's usually where you kind of draw that line.
I see.
So anyway, I guess point being, this is just more information. And I think it's what's interesting are things like, how often there was work done on the gate. I just think that's a really good data point because that's something that we're even talking about today. And also, back in around 2010 to 2013, there was a lot of work done to sort of understand the bigger capital cost of repairing the spillway, the crest of the spillway. And along with that, there was talk of needing to fix some of the masonry on the sluiceway and doing additional work on the gate. And a lot of this was new and interesting to me because when I came in 2017 with some of the current members of the select board, the discussion was very much about just repairing the crest of the spillway. I didn't realize a lot of other work had been done to look at other items that were in need of repair, and those items are still in need of repair. So we've really constrained our sort of understanding of what needs to be done currently to the Montgomery Dam to the spillway and not other parts of it.
Right, like the part where it was interesting to me, all the grout that had to be injected to stop the leaking of water down into Harbor Park and.
Okay. So will you be doing any more work on this? This is the end of your preliminary report at this point in time?
Yeah, so I'd say that the next step with this, and this is something that, a lot of the people who are interested in, saving the dam have been asking for is getting, good cost updates on what that would, what that would entail. And honestly, at this point, we don't really have a current comprehensive idea of what that would be.
But this is an attempt to answer part of that question.
Well, this is just looking backwards. I think the other part of it is sort of looking forwards and figuring that out. And, we have a better understanding of it, how it functions. And we have a better understanding of all the different elements of it that are sort of at the end of their useful life, or if it's something that the town seriously wants to contemplate keeping, things like, is that gate appropriately sized to deal with the level of flow that we're currently seeing there? Do we need to talk about increasing the size of the gate and the and the capacity of the sluiceway to handle all that water? Does the gate need to currently
mechanized or
something that's going to allow it to only be operated by one person instead of two? Things like that. That's all things that
They affect cost, of course.
Right, and this is all part of the due diligence around the whole discussion about what you want to do with the Montgomery Dam.
Yep. So, but this is one peg in the ground. We've got more to deal with in the cost side, and this is just again more homework that has to be done. To your point about, do we automate the gate or not? That's a big difference in costs going forward, capital-wise.
Sure, and I can't, I can't answer that question right now as to what it would entail and what it would cost. So I guess, the next step for all of you is, do you want me to do that piece of work? I would imagine that you would, but.
I believe it's necessary because I think we need to look at the safety of keeping the dam and the sluiceway operating effectively and what that can cost the town. You've got some historical data. How valid it is, question mark, but maintenance.
It's valid, it just might not be, there might be more.
Exactly.
Than what?
Well, I'm talking about the total validity of the total number may not.
I mean,
be.
I find this more interesting and more giving you context as to sort of the, the level of.
It's not adjusted for inflation. You could look at any of these numbers and say it's not meant to be like that.
As we look at what the cost may be for option B, which may be taking down the dam, there's going to be costs associated with that, right? There's going to be a cost so in how it's funded.
Anything you choose to do, there's going to be costs associated with
This
it.
one, yes. In my opinion, my personal opinion, we do have to have the data that looks to the capital of doing what's next, whatever that may be, or options related to automation, no automation. We do need to put some flesh on the bone of that option.
I mean, but I do think it would be good for people to have a better understanding of what the cost of the status quo would be. At the same time, most people have said that it really can't actually stay the same. I mean, that's why they worked it into the. So, do we want to? How many? I don't think we should be spending a huge amount of money at this point soliciting cost estimates.
I think sort of the benefit of what we've done so far is that it's not a lot of additional work or financial investment to get the additional information that we would need to reach out to like a contractor and get an estimate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's worth it. We need to dot our T's and
Absolutely, on all options.
and understand all the options.
All the options.
It's critical.
Is that clear?
Yep.
All right. We're going to move on to and general reports from the select board.
Already?
Start? Okay. I just want to say a few things about, talk about the dam thing for just a moment, because I'm doing it as, my concern here is as a specialist, and I want to make that clear, is it's not about whether we take the dam in or out, what we do. My concern is public safety. That's been the historical career that I've been involved with. And I constantly look, and I told one of the principals of the Save the Dam Committee that I was more interested in the science than anything else. I don't have I have no, involvement in the dam one way or the other, except that my concern is public safety. And I just wanted to mention a few things. My concern is heavy rain events, and what can we do to alleviate them? Whether it's the dam or anything else we can do, that's my specific concern. In the last, I just Googled today, in the last, since October 1st, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 major flood situations worldwide that involve, in China, 120,000 people evacuating their homes. In India, 500,000. In Thailand, 220,000. It just goes on and on. One of the key places was in Italy, where they had damage. Delusion, Italy sets European record 29 inches in 12 hours. This is from October 5th. This is this month. This is not back when they had the big floods in Germany and stuff. And that's really important. And it says, an intense complex of thunderstorms stalled over northwestern Italy on Monday, unleashing a 12-hour torrent unrivaled in the history of European weather observations. That goes on. We had a major flood on October 7th in Alabama. Never saw it in any of the news shows, never saw anything because there wasn't a big hurricane associated with it. But it says residents of the Birmingham, Alabama metro area were urged to move to higher ground overnight after more than a foot of rain fell in parts of the region. Stalled thunderstorms with extreme rainfall rates hovered in the area for hours, spurring numerous water rescues and even prompting the issuance of rare top-tier flood flash emergency. 4 people lost their lives. That didn't make the news. There's an article this past week in the Bangor Daily News. Intensifying storms put critical main infrastructure at rising risk of major floods. A couple of the points. Flooding caused by more frequent and intense storms threatens broad swaths of Maine's critical infrastructure, roads, homes, social services, and businesses over the next 30 years, a national study released Monday found. Almost 1/4 of the state's infrastructure facilities, including utilities, hospitals, emergency services, are already at risk of disabling floods. That risk will increase over the coming decades and stretch beyond coastal and riverside cities to smaller towns along streams that do not experience major overflows now, the study finds. It doesn't surprise me that the flood risk is going to be increasing. Peter Slavinsky, a Maine State marine geologist, said we're probably going to have more periods of drought punctuated by higher periods of rain falling in shorter amounts of time. I'm concerned about public safety. Whatever we need to do to reduce our flood risk is really important, because I think lives and property are primary importance and something the board should be looking after. That's where my interest is. That's my specialty.
Thank you.
To switch, going up really quickly, I'm going to just read you bits and pieces of an update from Dave Morrison, who's the director of the Opera House, because I mentioned that lately. And he sent all on the select board and the committee some comments. Over the past year, January to September, we have hosted 29 soundcheck performances. They've included big names, new faces, jazz, country. They've had a sold-out Town Rush concert. SIF returned to a live film festival, 2 successful Summer Sounds concerts at the Snow Bowl. We had acclaimed author Paul Doran read from his newest Mike Bowditch thriller. All in all, it's been an exciting, rewarding year so far. Looking forward to more soundcheck shows, a concert by American up-and-comers, the Wolf Sisters Band, and our Lunessa Irish Christmas concert on December 18th. He's already booked something like 20 new things through the first half of 2022. Wow, I don't think I've said that before. And so as everything that's gone on, as difficulties in COVID and stuff, the Opera House has worked really hard to provide some really top-notch entertainment and keep everybody safe at the same time. And I really compliment Dave and his staff. They've done an amazing job, and there's constant shows going on there. So please look at the Camden Opera House website, and if you see something you want to see, go see it. They keep you safe. They do distancing in the seating, and it's a marvelous. It's something we really, really should support and be thankful for.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it very much. Sophie, anything?
Just quickly, because I just saw what Allison is going to talk about, and I was going to talk about it, so I'm going to.
Oh, no, you can go for it.
No, I'll go for it.
I'll bring up the graphic.
That's fine. No, I saw the truck starting to clean up the culverts.
Oh, you're taking all my issues.
Well, no, I'm sharing them with you.
They are.
No, so I'm super excited that they're starting to do this, and I can't wait to go on a little trip with Dave Sanaro to learn more about it. But it's super exciting to see that we take action and things happen, and it's going to help us also prevent flooding in the town. So that's very cool.
Matt?
I'll give greater comment when I'm back live. I think it's a bit awkward as I'm here.
Okay, I understand.
Not awkward at all. I don't think. We can hear you and see you well.
Mark, Matt, if you want to, just go ahead.
No, again, I will certainly have plenty to say in 2 weeks.
I get it. Thank you. Ms. Allison.
Okay. So I attended a meeting of the group of towns that's participating in this U.S. Harbors project, which is a deployment of, I think it's 10 tidal gauges in mid-coast harbors. It's like the first time in the world where it's the most expansive deployment of these like hyper-local tidal gauges collecting really precise data. For a long time, we've kind of lamented that we have to go off of these predictions that are based off of, a different place, and we're always kind of noticing that high tide is, a little bit earlier, a little bit later in Camden than it is, in the predictions, and so that was really fun. There is the location that they've chosen is the Yacht Club for a variety of reasons. and it's up and running, and will be for the next 6 months. It's like a free.
Right?
Yep. It's right now they're working on some kinks, like the level that they're using for the the datum that they're using is the top of the wall at the yacht club. So everything is measured in how far from the wall at the yacht club, which is not the measurement of greatest interest to most of us. That's what they started with, but they're gonna be coming up with some different ones so that we can compare it to what we're used to. If we end up liking it and finding value in it, there's a subscription service eventually that towns could sign on to. But it's pretty exciting. It'll be really fun to see just how different it is from the predictions. Like a lot of, with all the Harbor Park stuff, we've tried to figure out, okay, is at an 11.9 foot high tide, it's overtopping, but that's all just predicted tides, not, we really never have what the actual tide is. So that'll be exciting. I'm really excited. I'm just happy.
The link is public. People.
It is.
It is public. It's you don't need a subscription or anything of the sort.
We can put it on the website.
We can put it on. We should put it on the town website so everybody can look at the data. 'Cause it's really cool to look at this data.
It is.
It is, and it'll be even better once we get a survey point out there and we can translate it into.
They just started a month ago.
It's been up for almost a month, I think, since September.
Yeah, I think September.
Yeah,
it was September. I think.
Yeah, September was right.
They've had a few hiccups. It was down for a few days. Somebody unplugged it because there was a wedding. But consistent data is now starting to come in.
Thank you. Now I'm going to save mine for next time too.
Keep us in suspense.
Yeah, I want to see if there's any crashes because of it. Not a big deal. But with that, Ms. Audra.
You've heard enough from me. I think.
All right, with that, I would ask the board to move to.
I'll make a motion that we move to executive session,
Excuse me,
MRSA.
before I say that, I got to read the right thing first. To move from select board to executive session under MRSA 405E, legal rights and duties. Now, Mark.
I make a motion that we move to executive session.
Second.
All those in favor? Matt, are you there?
I'm in favor under MRSA
My friend, okay.
section.
Well,
Can we have a quick little regrouping session? I mean, a break. Can we have a? That's what I meant to say. A break.
Yes, we can have a break for 30 seconds.
Okay, great. I'm going to lock the webinar here.
Oh, I forgot about that. Thank you.
Alison, I'll be in Dakar for the next meeting, so I'll be remote as well.
We'll try to get some.